I played 1,000 days of Stardew Valley on my first ever profile, and got perfection. In this 4-hour movie-length video, I went from not understanding how to sell items to getting the ultimate achievement in the game. This video is a compilation of my 100, 200, 300, and 400 days videos back to back to back to back. So without further ado, grab yourself an extra large bag of popcorn, get comfy, and please enjoy. Our journey started off with making our characters. Favorite thing? Rizzing up people. After we were done creating our players, the first cutscene began. We got a letter from our grandpa telling us that he has a gift for us, that being his favorite gift he has ever received, a farm over in the small town of Mangala. Editor's note, I'm realizing that my script was actually wrong. The farm name is Mangala, and the town name is actually not. Of course, eager to quit my job and my name being Mango, I was quick to accept his offer and move to Mangala. As soon as I stepped off the bus, someone named Robin escorted me to my farm. I was so happy upon seeing the messy yard in front of my farm that I jumped into the air in excitement. I was about to enter my house when my grandpa's friend Lewis teleported in front of my door. Lewis showed me the new house and Robin immediately clowned on it for some reason, but I just pretended I didn't hear it and moved on. Then I skipped this crucial bit of information that Lewis told me, which was how to sell items. Apparently, you place them in this box next to my house. But since I skipped this text box, I didn't find this out until quite a while later. Once they had all left, my soon-to-be next-door neighbor joined the game. When I woke up on the first day, I opened a gift I found on the floor of my humble abode. Inside was a stack of 16 parsnip seeds. After saying hello to Jared, I began clearing a plot for my crops. Once the ground was all hoed, I planted and watered my entire field, and Jared did the same. Then I cleared some more of our plot and headed off to town. I spoke to some people around the town and even just walked into people's houses without asking permission. When night fell upon the town, we headed back to the house and went to sleep, marking the end of our first day in Stardew Valley. In the morning of day 2, I checked my mailbox and was met with a note from Willie that told me to meet him at the beach. I followed Jared down to the bottom of the map where the beach was located and spoke to Willie. He gave us both a free bamboo fishing rod, and I began fishing next to Jared. It took me a while to find out that I couldn't catch anything with a full inventory, or at least if I did, I would have to either trash the fish or something that I had in my inventory. And after I figured it out, I caught a 5-inch sunfish as my first catch. Back at the house, I watered my crops and started mining trees. With the new wood, I crafted a chest, which I placed in the corner of my empty house next to the fireplace. I spent the rest of the day clearing the land in our farm and went to bed. Day 3, it was raining, which meant that I didn't have to water my plants. Jared and I decided to explore above the house. After exploring a massive house above us, we continued along the path and arrived at what looked like a mine. We tried a couple of things to try and get around the rock that was blocking our path, and eventually gave up, and set our sights on removing this bush. However, just like the mine, this never came to fruition either, and eventually, we gave up and fished in the nearby river. I mined wood for a bit before bed, and overnight, I leveled up to a level 1 forager. Level 1 foraging? There are levels? The next morning, the rain had cleared, so I watered my crops before starting the day. After making the realization that this game has skills, I became a plot-clearing tryhard in an attempt to level up other skills, to the point where, by 10 AM, I was already mad low on energy. Jared and I headed to the town, and I walked into Pierre's, where I realized that this was where I would buy more seeds in the future. Day 4, and Jared was here playing on my account. This is almost definitely the only time this will happen in this video, as he lives 15 hours away from me in real life. Jared started a quest which wanted him to catch a largemouth bass, so he headed to the lake beside the mine. On the way back, he found a book in the ground and went to sleep. We had also found out how to make money at this point, and so, with my first day of sales, I got 251G, which is apparently gold. However, instead of 750 gold, I only had 250, as Jared had paid himself my starter cash for some reason. Day 5 started with harvesting both our parsnips. Bro's not letting me get his gains. After the harvest, we headed to the mine, which Jared now knew that it opens on day 5 of the first year. This is probably a good time to mention that Jared played another 5 hours of Stardew on a separate character, so he knew a lot more about the game. He skipped the cutscene.
He just is like, oh. You probably wanted that for video's sake.
But the miner gave me a rusty sword, which I would need to brave the depths of the mine. In the mine, we headed down multiple layers and mined tons of copper and stone ore. I also claimed 100 gold as a quest reward for my first harvest. After a long day in the mines, Jared tried to rizz up Haley, and he was devastated to learn that she was ignoring him? Me? This part of the script is really confusing. Either way, he headed out to get her a flower, carrying it above his head the entire way back. He broke into her home and gave her the flower, which she happily accepted. The next day, when I woke up, Clint was at my doorstep, and he gifted me the recipe to craft a furnace. We went back to the pond by the mine in a last-ditch attempt to get a largemouth bass before the quest timed out. We never ended up catching it, but I did end up catching a gold star 37-inch carp. I sold the carp and got my comedically small inventory ready for a trip to the mines.
Yeah, I'm a pro miner. I get all the miners.
Huh? On the way, I said hi to Haley, Jazz, Demetrius, and Abigail, and I got down to floor 8 before calling it quits and heading home. I sold my stuff before bed and ended the day with a fishing level up and another 543 gold in my pocket. Day 7, it was raining, but that didn't affect me as I didn't have any crops placed down. I stood outside of Pierre's in the rain for about an hour before he finally let me in, and when he did, I bought 30 potato seeds. Then I went home and crafted some fertilizer to Jared's farm for some reason before tilling my own land and placing some potatoes. I placed them in this weird diagonal to see how far the scarecrow could reach. I then collected some sap from the trees and made some fertilizer for myself and planted the rest of the potatoes. I went to bed at around 6 to recharge some energy without realizing that Jared had left, so I accidentally skipped to day 8. The day started with watering my plants, and then a bit of fishing at the lake by the mines. Then I went to the blacksmith's and grappled with whether or not I would finish the quest if I gave Clint the fish he requested. For some reason I was completely unable to accept that it could be that simple. While I was thinking, I fished in the river next to the blacksmith's, and yeah, it was that simple. The quest netted me 90 gold, and when I arrived home, I unlocked level 2 fishing. Side note, we're in fall at the time of writing this script, and I just learned that while I'm level 7 in fishing, Jared is still level 1. Anyways, the next day started with watering my crops, and I'll probably stop mentioning this, so just assume that every day I wake up, and I'm watering the crops. Then I ran into town and blew all of the profits from the last couple of days on 15 more potato seeds. I checked out the bus as I was confused why it would just park there for a week and planted the seeds I had just purchased. I then grabbed my trusty fishing pole and headed back to the lake where I spent the rest of the day. I also tried to equip a pair of broken glasses that I had found to no avail. The next day, Marnie met me on the doorstep with the proposition of adopting a cat. Oh, did I not change what animal I like? Oh, we have a cat now. I hate cats. Well, I despise cats. That sucks. Will you adopt this cat? Yes, I will. In my solo world, it had been a dog, and I'm almost positive that the reason I got a cat in this one is because I forgot to change my favorite animal in the character creation menu. Either way, I couldn't say no to adopting it, so everyone please welcome to the family our new cat, Scorpion GD. After adopting a pet, I decided to prioritize mining. Jared came down with me, and on the 10th floor, we unlocked another elevator warp, which is unlocked every 5 floors, but more importantly, we got a pair of leather boots, boasting +1 defense and +1 immunity. Once I ran out of parsnips, we had ended up on floor 15, which was some decent progress. In the mail, Pam asked me for a pale ale. It's been over half a year now, and I still have not gotten one. Then we went to bed for the night, and I woke up completely healed. Then we went below the farm to get Jared an axe, but for some reason, I didn't have the quest. It's because I was really bad at reading the mail at the start, and that's how you got the quest. Of course, I decided to go mining, and was running so low on energy by floor 19 that I resorted to eating flowers and mud-caked cave carrots, just to keep me going. It was all worth it in the end though, as on floor 20 there was a steel smallsword, which was far superior to the rusty sword given to me back on day 5. Jared, however, was knocked unconscious. I found the way down, yes!
I died!
Well, I got a steel smallsword, so who really won? Wait, no, obviously me. Running back through the shadow of the night, I made it back just before midnight, and overnight, I leveled up mining in combat. Yay, day numero 11. We missed Haley's birthday, but I don't really care. No! Day 12, the bookseller was in town, but that didn't matter as neither of us knew where it was. I also made my first copper bat today and moved my table. I let a singular furnace chug away until I got 8 bars. And wait, let's replay that. I stole Jared's first bar, and he never noticed. I truly am bad to the bone. Since I'm absurdly unoriginal, I decided to go mining for the 3rd day in a row. Okay, are we done mining yet? Yup, and I had to leave one floor before unlocking an elevator warp, which is sad. When I left the mine, I noticed a green building to the right and tried to enter, when I was told that it was for proven adventurers only. Unfortunately, I went to bed after 12, so day 13 started with very little energy. The first batch of potatoes had grown, so I harvested them, and I had some ideas to sleep on, which I now know means that I would level up when I went to bed. I sold all the potatoes and would later end up regretting that. Luckily, today was the egg festival, so I didn't need much energy. We went into town and started talking to all the NPCs. Remember this girl specifically, Leah. She'll be important later. Oh, never mind. It's Leah. It's Leah. Never mind.
Oh, I haven't talked to the little girls.
What?
Come here, little girl.
Yep, that's going in the video. Eventually, Lewis decided to start the egg hunt, and according to my research, it looked like it was just Jared, me, and a bunch of children. Either way, the event had started, and I immediately got stuck trying to get these eggs behind Pierre, and wasted half of my time on that. By the time I got them, the other nearby eggs were completely gone. Of course, I lost, but Jared won a straw hat. I cleared some land before bed, and went to bed on the same frame as the getting late message. Do you think that I A, got in bed before, B, was given the straw hat, or C, got in bed after? If you picked B, you need to listen better, because Jared got the straw hat. The correct answer was A. I got in bed before. Oh, and I also got 2,840 gold from selling my potatoes. With my newfound wealth, I immediately spent 2,000 of it on a bigger backpack, unlocking the second row of inventory space. The rest of it I spent on an additional 17 potato seeds. This is the way I planted them. Feel free to say, Mango, that's so cool and awesome. I love your quirky planting methods. Or, you could just be honest. After I planted the taters, I crafted 2 more chests. Then I grabbed some more food, and Jared and I braved the mines once more. I also walked 10,000 paces, which is cool, I guess. In one of the crates, I found a wooden club, which I replaced my current sword with. Which, in hindsight, I don't think that was a good idea, as the club is painfully slow. Either way, we got some of the green fog, which spawns a ton of monsters, and for some reason, they all targeted Jared. But he then decided to walk near me, and they all targeted me. It was fine though, as I'm insanely skilled, and I killed them all. While I was doing that, Jared got a ladder, and we kept on mining. I left the mine at around 11, and tried to get home before it was too late, but I failed. Jared was not even close, clocking in at around 1 a.m. Day 15, it was raining again, which is always good, as it means I don't have to water the crops. I checked the mailbox, and inside I found an envelope from my mom with 3 cookies stuffed into it. Then I went down and harvested some salmon berries before getting Robin's axe that she requested over a week ago. I went up to give her the axe, but got distracted by the prospect of mining. Get it? The prospect? Like the search for mineral deposits in a place, especially by means of experimental drilling and excavation? You can laugh now. I continued mining until floor 40, as clearly stand-up is not in my immediate future, where I found a slingshot. Side note, I kinda skipped over the last 10 floors of the mines, but that's mainly just because it was really dark and absurdly annoying to get by. Anyways, the 40s held deposits of iron, and it was ice-themed for some reason. I headed home, and Jared passed out before making it home, and overnight, I made 1,240 gold off of potatoes.
Oh, I'm so close. I'm so close. Come on. Come on. No.
Day 16, there were flower petals in the air. Why? I still don't know, but it was certainly a welcome surprise. I went to Pierre's where I triggered a Pierre cutscene. In it, a JojaMart employee offered 50% off on all his products, which of course attracted all of Pierre's customers. I didn't know where JojaMart was, and Jared told me that it would ruin the save, so I just bought 25 more potato seeds from Pierre. I gave Abigail a flower, and in return, I got 100 gold, which was certainly a worthwhile investment. Then I headed to the museum where I donated 2 dwarf scrolls I found in the mines. I saw Robin and was reminded that I still had her axe, so I gave it to her before clearing some more of my land and heading to bed. I then stole Jared's iron bar and said, "Chat, I don't think he noticed. I think we're chilling today."
What?
Nothing. He noticed. Don't worry though, I gave it back. I started the day differently today by clearing some land near the bottom of our farm. I also crafted another furnace, then I continued clearing and took a short nap to regenerate energy. Eventually I had regenerated most of my energy, which I spent on more clearing. I guess today was just a housework day. I went to bed early today at 11. The next morning, I did the thing that I always do, where I'm super early for Pierre's and have to wait for an hour before he opens. You'll never guess what I bought though. I decided to branch out a bit with today's purchase, so you already know I bought potatoes for the 5th time. On the way to the mines after planting the taters, I picked every salmon berry I could find before mining more iron ore in the mines just by resetting the floor over and over. Then I stuck my iron in the fern eye and went to sleep. Day 19, I started to branch out from the mines a little and headed to my favorite lake to fish for the entire day. That's literally all I did before going to sleep. Day 20, my bestie Pierre made me wait outside again, so of course I gave him tons of money to plant even more potatoes. After day 19, I was getting FOMO from the mines and, oh, never mind, I'm back to fishing. I was exhausted by the end of the day, so I headed home and made $1.6 thousand on potatoes and fish. Day 21, I headed to town when I was met with an absurdly surprising cutscene, where Lewis met me at a rundown building called the Community Center. He informed me that the Community Center used to be the pride of Pelican Town, and a place to hang out and socialize before people lost interest with modern day technology, and he just couldn't afford to upkeep the place anymore. Remember JojaMart from the Pierre cutscene? Well, that same company wants to buy the land from Lewis to turn it into a warehouse. Lewis told me that if anyone else decides to buy a membership, he's gonna sell it to Joja, and I'm almost certain that this is like a warning to not buy a membership. Then we headed inside and it was just as run down. Whilst talking to Lewis, I saw a little apple person, who I now know is called a Junimo, and every time Lewis looked, he teleported away. Lewis basically told me to get therapy, and then he said he'd leave the door unlocked, so I could try and catch the rat sometime, which is absolutely massive. After that, I explored around the community center for a little bit, and eventually found a rune that I just walked past. Whatever, that's fine, doesn't even matter. Then I went to Clint's house to process some geodes, and went to the museum to donate a fire quartz, amethyst, topaz, earth crystal, dwarvish helm, malachite, and granite. Those donations then unlocked rewards, such as some ancient seeds and starfruit seeds, which I currently did not care about. Overnight, I hit foraging level 3. Day 22 started with harvesting some of my potatoes that had grown. I left 6 in my chest because way back on day 5 when Jared was at my house, he had done that with the parsnips, so I figured I should do it with the taters. Later on in the video, I'll just completely stop doing this, just figured I'd mention it. Then I waited at Pierre's, my favorite activity, and when he opened, I walked in and then immediately back out, instead walking into the community center. I was headed over to the farm where I triggered a Jazz and Vincent cutscene. They were playing over by the sewers and just randomly dropped the most helpful lore drop that Gunther, the guy from the museum, had the key. Anyways, then they got scared, and I, being the adult in the situation, immediately did exactly what they wanted me to do and checked out the sewer. Then I got scared and we all ran away. Actual interactive dialogue for once, and I think I picked the right option, as Leah agreed with me. It's more real than living in the city. Hey, am I actually bonding with Leah right now? Jared then told me to go to the wizard and talk to him, but I couldn't enter, so I had to go back to the community center where I clicked the runes, and tomorrow the wizard would teach me the language. For some reason, I went to bed early today, with the only energy I had used was to water the plants. The profit for today was $13.20 of potatoes. Day 23, it was raining, and we all know how much we love rain here. Can we all spam the comments with "We Heart Rain"? Of course, rain or shine, Pierre made me wait outside for 2 hours, but then I got distracted with the mail and forgot to go inside. I read a letter that said there was a flower dance tomorrow, and I was sure that this was gonna go amazingly with the amount of hearts I have with everyone. Then I headed back to town to buy a copper pick upgrade from Clint, but accidentally brought iron. Yeah. Oh, I brought silver bars! I'm actually gonna crash out. On the way home, however, I bought some salads for Leah, because for those who don't know, one of Leah's loved gifts is salad, and this is super easy to get from the saloon. I stood like a hopeless romantic in front of Leah's house, in the rain, from 7 to 10:20, before giving up and hitting the hay. Day 24 is a special day, not only because I had 5 potatoes to harvest, but also because it was the first annual flower dance. In the morning before though, I was also sent a letter from my mom saying that Grandpa left me some money, that being 500 gold, which was certainly nice. In the time before the dance, I watered my plants, and the dance started. It was in this far corner of the Cindersnap forest that I had never been, because it's impossible. But it was a really good way to get free friendship by talking to all the NPCs. I'm just gonna let this next bit play out, because in all honesty, it's really quite funny. Is this the location of said flower dance? Leah! What a pleasant sight to behold. Hi, Mango, glad to see you're here. No! I got rejected by Leah. This is devastating. Chat, uh-oh. Haley! No, I don't want to ask J-Bone to dance with me.
Oh, no! Just ask all the single people.
Dang it! Well, Clint.
Everyone. Everyone has said no.
No! J-Bone.
Oh.
No! This is the end of the world.
Demetrius. I forgot she's not single. I'm just going around asking everyone.
Gus, everyone... please, don't do me dirty like this. Pam, I know you're mad ugly, but please. Maybe next year. I want you this year. Next year I'll have Leah. This is devastating.
Single.
Wait, hold on.
Oh.
Canceling request. Can I dance with Linus? No. I don't think you can dance with anyone, Jared. We don't have enough social.
I'm gonna ask Sam.
Sam rejected me.
No, there's someone else I want to dance with.
This is the most embarrassing moment of my life.
Hey, ask Elliot.
I just did.
Not today. Dude, this is hilarious. Look who Leah's with.
This is devastating.
Oh wait, I don't think
Leah's dancing with Elliot?
Wait, what?
Love yourself, Elliot.
Whoa. I asked you, right, and then the dance started. This is so boring.
If only I had a handsome man in a straw hat to dance with me.
I asked you, but then the dance started, okay?
Bro, my eyes are piercingly blue in the darkness. We got home at 10, and I was so depressed, I talked about it in chat. Luckily, my day was made better by a farming level overnight. It was raining on the morn of day 25, and Jared and I were both waiting at Leah's house, as neither of us could get a date, and Jared is the most unoriginal, beta, terrible person I have ever met. So yeah, long story short, something happens in year 2, so stick around for that video. I then blew all my money on 6 more salads for Leah and decided to fish in front of her house, while I waited for her to come out. This was the first of many times reading the Leah wiki, so Jared and I were both waiting in front of her house at 4 on the dot. Anyways, I gave her the gift and continued fishing because I didn't know what else to do. I even got an achievement for catching 10 unique fish. I finally decided to call it quits at nearly 1 when I leveled up. Also, this is technically day 26, but for the sake of the video, I'm gonna keep it at 25. Let me know in the comments for year 2 if you want me to update the counter when I wake up, or when it hits 12 p.m. Anyways, I barely made it to bed before 2, and leveled up to a level 4 fisher. Day 26, all the potatoes are ready. Yippee! I sold them all along with all my excess fish from yesterday. Jared left the game at like 8 today, but I just finished the day and was standing in front of Leah's house for a couple of hours before remembering that I could fish. I'll have a surprisingly high fishing level by the end of the video for this reason and this reason only. This fish also gave me a crazy struggle, and then it was just a chub, so that's cool and not embarrassing at all. Anyways, at 4 I caught her on the way out and gave her a salad, and now I have 1 heart. Yay! Back to fishing, cause I have nothing good to do today, and ending the day early with, I believe, 37.55 gold in my pockets. I can't really tell though because I skipped the screen so quickly. Day 27, the Hat Mouse sent me a letter, but I didn't know where it was nor really care about hats, so I just ignored it. My copper pick was also ready, so I went back to go pick it up. With my new pick, I headed back down to the mines and tried to make it down a couple more floors. I made it to level 55 and headed to the bar in search of Leah, but it turns out that you can only give people 2 gifts per week apparently, so I bought some more salads from Gus and dipped. Before bed, I did a little bit more clearing, and when I went to sleep, the final day of spring began. Speaking of the final day of spring, here we are, and I'm on my way to Clint's to upgrade my pickaxe to its even better iron counterpart. While waiting for Clint, I ran in loops in front of Leah's house and eventually started fishing. When she came out, I gave Leah a salad and went to the wizard's house. I learned that his name is Rasmodius, and he told me that he foresaw my arrival, which is pretty funny considering the fact that he literally sent me a letter to come here. He then showed me one of the apple people and told me that they are called Junimos. I told him I'd seen a note written in Junimo language, so he teleported away to check it out, and when he was back, he told me he had found a way to read the language. He told me to drink this green potion he'd made, and I started straight tripping, seeing floating trees and leaves waving around. Jared also told me around this time that he was at 4 Hearts with Leah because he taught her how to fish. I was mad that I didn't see that option for multiple seasons until I finally learned he was lying. Here you can see me going to the dock to try to teach her, fully convinced that the reason I couldn't was because she already knew from Jared. Anyway, then I started fishing over in the lake by the wizard's house. I fished late into the night and made it home by 1:30. The day started off, nay, the season started off by Demetrius, the local scientist, meeting me at my doorstep and asking me permission to turn the cave over in the top left of my farm into a bat cave, which would produce fruit, or a mushroom cave, which would produce, you'll never guess, mushrooms. I picked fruit bats, and I don't really know if this was the right choice, but too late to change it now. After that, I headed to Pierre's to buy the new seasonal seeds, and my seed of choice was blueberries, purely because they can reproduce after you harvest them. I headed home via the Leah route and fished in front of her house. When she left her house, I gave her another daily salad before heading home and tilling my ground to place the seeds. I also played a bit of Stardew on a separate character while waiting for Jared, and as you can see, I left space for some advanced sprinklers in between all of the crops. And spoiler, I didn't get advanced sprinklers for a very long time. I ended up getting them all placed down along with a starfruit seed and watered them before doing what I do best, fishing by Leah's house. I made some refined quartz before bed, and that was a rather successful first day of summer. Day 30 started off by watering the blueberries. After that, I headed to the mines where I picked up a crystal dagger, which I switched out my club for. After my sword upgrade, I tried to get down a couple more layers, and on floor 70, I found a master slingshot, which I believe is the only ranged weapon we'll have on this entire series. Anyways, we made it to floor 72 and headed home around 10:30, and we made it to bed a little bit after midnight. Overnight, there was a speaker icon, and we were informed of an earthquake taking place during the night. Oh, and I also leveled up to level 4 mining. Day 31, Mayor Lewis sent me a note that requested me to discreetly retrieve his purple shorts. And I'm gonna be honest, I think I forgot to do this in this video. Whilst I watered my plants, Jared tried out his brand new slingshot by hitting me with stones during my daily chores. After I finished the daily watering, I headed back to the mines, picking up all the forageables on the way, where I also discovered what the crash in the night was and headed up above Linus's tent, where I found a spa and some train tracks. Then I immediately decided that I didn't care and headed out to the mine, where we went to the icy dungeon layers and made it down to floor 80 and beyond, where we could now mine gold. Of course, tonight was another night where I made it to bed way too late and Jared passed out. Day 32, I collected my absurdly irresponsible gold bars that I left in a running furnace overnight, and crafted one singular sprinkler just to see what it was. After watering the crops, I cleared some of the farmland and tracked Leah down in the town where I said hi. After that, I headed into the Adventurers Guild where I sold some of my old gear that I was no longer using. After that, I headed to the right of the guild where I found a broken down bridge. And then I decided to explore the new spa, and it looked really run down and creepy if I'm being honest. Once I had checked out the spa, I headed up to the train station. And at the time of writing this script, halfway through year 2, I still don't know what's up there. I decided to call it quits today at around 9:30, but then got distracted with clearing and chores for the next 2 hours. Day 33, and it is raining, which is always a welcome surprise. I checked out the bat cave for the first time, and I found a couple of fresh fruits lying on the cold hard floor of the cave. A train was also passing through, and Jared no-clipped through the model, and he also somehow ended up on the other side over at the station. We're not at the bottom of the mines yet, so you already know we back to floor 85, where I experimented with 3 random cherry bombs that I had, to absolutely no avail. Eventually, however, I did get a shaft and we continued down the mines. I nearly died on floor 87's, so I chickened out and dipped instead, heading to the saloon to say hi to Leah. I wonder if she finds it weird how I always know where she is. Nah, probably just a coincidence. After saying hi to Leah, I took a quick nap to regain health and energy, and it is so absurdly satisfying to watch in 10 times speed, which is how I write my scripts. Fully refreshed, I headed back out to clear a bit, and then had technical difficulties which wasted the next couple of hours. Day 34, it's raining again. That's twice in a row, so let's go! Anyways, no need to water the plants today, so I guess I'm heading to the mines once again, and I promise I will stop mining at some point. I hope. There's my first diamond, and they are much more rare in Stardew than Minecraft. So leave a comment if you want me to mine diamonds in this game for every sub I get. I'm not doing that ever again. My health dropped like crazy in the mines, so we're headed down to Leah's house to fish while we wait. After that, I took a nap to regain my health and energy before getting stuck at the door from Scorpion and heading back out to clear some more of the farm. Day 35 and the rain spree is over, so we're back on the watering grind. After that, it's a new week, which means that there are 2 more gifts for Leah. Of course, you already know that we're fishing while we wait. Whilst there, I also leveled up fishing again.
We need a sunfish?
I got caught up on a fish that I ended up missing and had to track down Leah throughout the town. And while I was doing that, Jared donated a bream to the community center, along with, all this. Then I went to the community center and grabbed all my forageables along the way. When I got there, I ended up donating a sunfish and a chub. On the way home, I was hit with a Linus cutscene where he got caught digging through George's trash can. George thought it was a rat and implored me to catch the rat, which was Linus. Linus told me that he foraged through the trash for random food that people would throw away, and I was met with a choice, which I told him to get a job, which was probably not the right answer. After I left, Linus moved on to Gus's trash can and Gus caught him, but instead of getting mad, he offered him free food. The cutscene finally ended, and I barely made it home before midnight, and I was met with fishing level 5 and a choice of a proficiency. I picked Fisher. Day 36. After watering the crops, I headed down to Marnie's, and when I realized she wasn't working today, I went back down to my favorite fishing spot. I was AFK when Leah left her house, so when I got back, I ran straight to Pierre's where I knew she would be. I went to sleep at 4-ish, and once night appeared, I headed down to the lake so I could fish before going to bed again at midnight. Day 37 started by watering the crops. I know, very surprising. After that, I headed to the cold floor 60 of the mines, where I was fishing? Yup, in an attempt to work on the fish tank for the community center, I was looking for a ghost fish, and a little after noon, I managed to catch it. 1 fish down, and I headed to the lake outside the mine, and by the end of the fishing escapade, I was able to donate a bullhead and a ghost fish. I ran over to Leah's house and just barely missed her before she entered the house, and I sold all my excess fish before bed, totaling around 900 gold. Day 38, I repaired the bridge on the right side of the beach with 300 pieces of wood. Once there, I collected 5 coral and a sea urchin from the tide pools on the beach. I also tried fishing in one of them and was disappointed to realize that I couldn't. I then walked into Willie's and was met with a cutscene where he told me that he had a prize for me if I could catch every single fish in the game. And since the goal is to 100% this profile, I guess we'll get to see what that is at some point. Anyways, he told me that since the community center became run down, he had had some trouble selling the fish he catches. After the cutscene ended, I bought what I had actually come there for, that being a fiberglass rod, which meant that I could now use bait. While I was there, Jared was donating his wares to the museum and community center, donating a clam, oyster, mussel, orange, peach, hot pepper, and wild plum. While he was doing that, I was rizzing up Leah on the beach, and when I got home, I checked my social tab, and it was not great. So after discovering that, I turned to the only person I could talk to at this late of an hour, and gave Jared a daffodil. And finally, we went to sleep. Day 39 was the day of the luau, and I didn't have anything good to put in the soup, so Jared handed me a radish. We didn't know if that would work either, so he gave me a melon just in case. Once we got to the luau, I put the melon in the stew and started talking to all the different NPCs for some free friendship. After we had talked to everyone, the governor got the first bite of the soup, and he was brutally honest and basically just called it mid. Anyways, the luau ended, and we must have taken way too long to walk back, because by the time we got there, it was 10 o'clock. And we promptly went to bed. On the morning of day 40, Jared had a bunch of forageables to collect while I watered the plants. On the way to the mines, I collected a spice berry which gave me a foraging level, before Jared gave me a chocolate cake and we started mining. Unfortunately, whilst mining, I got attacked by a slime on floor 89 and passed out for the first time of this episode. I woke up on the top floor of the mines to 100 less gold in my pockets and Linus standing above me. After waking up, I headed back down the elevator and I collected my obsidian edge from floor 90, which will be my main sword for quite a good while. By the end of the day, we had made it down to floor 95, and overnight I leveled up to a level 4 forager and level 5 miner, where I selected the miner profession, giving +1 ore per vein. On day 41, it was raining, which is always welcome. I donated some Bixite to the museum and checked out the books in the library. Of course, during a rainy day, there's nothing better to do than fish all day. All the while, Jared stayed dry by donating obsidian, an emerald, and a rare disc. Unaware of the day of the week, I tried giving Leah a gift, but then I remembered that I had already reached the max. I headed to the beach to collect some coral while he donated a purple mushroom and fire quartz. Then I met the old mariner on the right side of the beach, and remember this guy, he is very important later. Day 42, there was a strange weather event going on. However, my thirst for profits was much higher than the fear of death, as I harvested my blueberries and immediately sold them. Since it was a Sunday, I went to Gus's to buy some more salads and found the entire town huddled into the saloon. Deciding to huddle down, Jared and I headed to the mines, where he used a couple of staircases. And on floor 100, we found a star drop, which is a way to increase our maximum energy. The star drop reminded me of YouTube videos, which was apparently what I marked as my favorite thing. Jared's reminded him of Riz. I guess you always want what you can't have. Making our way down, we made it to floor 105, which means that we're only 15 floors from completing the mine. The blueberries ended up selling for 5,934 gold. Luckily, on day 43, the green rain had subsided. However, that did also mean that I had to water the crops, which will now produce every 3 days for the rest of summer. After that, I grabbed 5 silver bars and gave Clint my pickaxe for upgrading. I also saw Leah leaving her house, which reminded me that I needed to buy some more salads. And after spending almost all of my blueberry money on 13 salads, I handed one of them to Leah and immediately got caught digging through the trash by Marnie's. I also handed Elliot a gold bar that he requested in return for 750 gold. Heading back to the farm, I cleared a couple trees behind Jared's house, and an active construction site randomly appeared behind me. After that, I cleared some more land with Jared and headed to bed. Wait, sorry, I meant skibbity slept. The morning of day 44 was relatively uneventful, and that continued for the rest of the day. But I caught Leah at noon and went back to clearing, which was all I did. All day. The start of day 45, I was not recording for some reason. However, based on the hotbar, I can see that I got my pickaxe from Clint's. For some reason, Jared couldn't join on his main account, so he made an account called Mingo's Love, and it was not even close. When he left to join on his main, the logout message said, Mingo's Love, parentheses, wildkids_6, has quit. And at the end of the day, I followed Jared to Gunther's for him to donate a diamond, but it was too late. The blueberries were ready to harvest again on day 46, and this one led me to another farming level. I ran to town to donate some things in the community center, and when I came home, Jared had bought 2 chicks, one of which was named Subscribe to Mango, and you'll never guess whose idea that was. Overnight, I reached level 5 farming, and I ended up picking the tiller profession, as I don't have any animals at the moment. Day 47 was another day in the mines, and on floor 110, I found a pair of space boots, which gives 4 defense and 4 immunity. With my brand new steel pickaxe, I started mining all the big boulders that had been annoying me for a long while. Before bed, I profited off of Jared's work by claiming 100 gold, which was from the Robin quest, which required you to purchase animals. Day 48, I woke up to fresh gold bars that I had been cooking overnight, which was probably not fire safe in the slightest. Either way, I headed to Clint's for him to crack open geodes in the hope to find something to donate to the museum. After that, I headed to the mine, starting at floor 1 this time, as I needed copper for some reason. I guess we'll find out what that is at the same time. It struck midnight, but you already know that we had to donate it, and complete the first room of the community center, that being the boiler room. After that, I went home and hit level 3 combat. We got some great news because it's raining on the morning of day 49, and of course, it being the dawn of a new week, I headed to Leah's where I found a fishing festival, which was called a trout derby. Here I could fish in search of rainbow trout, each of which would give a chance to drop a golden ticket, which I could trade in for rewards, such as this nifty tent kit. Anyways, at 4 I caught Leah on her way out, and this salad set me over 5 hearts with her, which gave me the achievement a new friend. Dang, even the game is friend zoning me. Anyways, I headed home to collect a couple of my gold bars, and then went back to the festival. It was getting late, and Jared decided to use a portable tent kit, because he thought it was reusable, which was pretty funny. It's day 50, which would be halfway, but a year in Stardew is actually 112 days for some reason. Anyways, it's raining again, which means I don't have to water the crops today. Speaking of crops, it's another harvest day, which is always very exciting. After harvesting the blueberries, I headed to the community center to do a quick round of donating, and afterwards I headed to Clint's to have him open some more geodes, some of which gave me iridium, which would be very useful in the future. Alongside the iridium, I also got some more minerals to donate to the museum. So I headed next door to Gunther's to do just that, and in return he gave me a futon bear, which I placed in the corner for the time being. Before the day was over, I headed to the saloon to give Leah yet another another salad, and overnight a blue man piloting a purple biplane dropped a bunch of mystery boxes across the valley. Day 51 started off with audio problems, but after I got those sorted, I found a mystery box in my first tree. After looking through the fish tank requirements in the community center, I sold all of my excess fish from the festival from 2 days ago. Jared left relatively early today, so I gave Leah another salad before heading back to bed. We took a gap day, but day 52 was the third rain day out of the last 4. I had a quest that required me to give Clint 30 copper ore, but when I gave it to him, he just said that it made him depressed. I was confused, but eventually realized that I needed to mine the ores, as I had just used some that I had in storage. Today was Willie's birthday, but I didn't care enough to track him down. Jared also began work on a silo for his chickens. I headed to the mines a little bit after noon, and I guess I was just confused because I went to a ton of different floors over and over for some reason. Day 53 started by opening geodes at Clint's, and once he was done, I gave him the copper he had requested earlier, which let me keep the ores, and he still paid me 340 gold. After that, I headed to the museum, where I donated the slate I had got earlier that morning. Walking back into the main section of town, I triggered a Mayor Lewis cutscene, where he showed me a prize machine he had added to his house, where I could give prize tickets in exchange for rewards. Unfortunately, my first prize ticket only fetched me 12 broccoli seeds, which I will probably never use. Then Jared gave me an ice cream cone, which I immediately gave to Haley. Let's call it a gift that keeps on giving. After that, I headed back to the farm where I continued clearing out the land, and we started looking for a secret woods entrance, which we thought was over here behind this massive tree. It, wasn't even close to the right location. By the end of the night, I ran around the 3 houses, trying to go to sleep alone, because if you haven't already noticed, Jared has been sleeping in my bed for quite a while now. Anyways, I harvested my blueberries in the rain on day 54, and after that was finished, I grabbed some resources from my chests. As I was planning to increase the farm size with more sprinklers and resources in tow, I started tilling my land in preparation for fall. Aside from smelting more ores, including some of the tilled spots on our farm from Jared's rush for clay, which he used for his silo on day 52, I pretty much did nothing all day. Day 55 was the first time in a while that did not start with watering my blueberries, and that's because there's not enough time left in the season to get another harvest, so watering the plants every day would be completely frivolous. I stood completely AFK at the start of the day, but eventually I went fishing in front of Leah's house, and caught her to say hi on her way to the saloon. I also gave Marnie a fish accidentally, and she didn't seem too chuffed with it. I also gave Haley a solid bar of gold, and for some reason she thought it was a stupid gift. Oh yeah, like you see a whole bar of gold every single day, Haley. I guess today was just a day of giving regards, as I also said hi to Jas, Vincent, Penny, Sebastian, and Sam. After that, I headed to the saloon's arcade section, and I tried the game. I didn't really like it very much. It's the last day of summer, and I got a note from Demetrius, talking about an event called the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies, and Jared and I were both very excited to go, hoping to actually be able to dance with someone this time, due to our efforts to meet some of the villagers. I picked up my axe at Clint's before the event began, and headed to the Starter Up Saloon, as Jared and I could both only dance with Leah, and I had to make sure I got there before him. I was kinda just meandering around town for a bit that night, and waited next to the beach, chugging my coffee in anticipation. But wait, my competitor was also drinking coffee. Luckily for me, I knew exactly where Leah would be standing, as it didn't show up on Google so Jared didn't know, and I had watched a video of the event to see her location. And I ended up getting there first. I would get to dance with Leah and Jared wouldn't. Wait, where's the dancing option? Yeah, the event's not an actual dance, so that's fun. Either way, I spoke to more of the villagers before Lewis initiated the event, and we watched jellyfish swim beneath our feet. The season started off with Leah at my doorstep. She gave me this, honestly, really ugly statue, and she told me it was named How I Feel About Mango, which I don't know if I should take that as a compliment or not. After that, I looked at a meteor that had fallen in our yard, and then bought some crops to send to the community center, but mostly just a ton of cranberries. I planned out the locations of my sprinklers and started planting all of my crops, and after they were all placed down, I began watering them, which I would hopefully only have to do once this season. Finally, to end off the day, I lit up the area around my field so I could see around at night. Day 58 starts a little after noon, as I forgot to start the recording. After I did that though, I handed Leah another salad and took advantage of the sea cucumber frenzy over at the beach, trying to collect as many as possible. And even after the frenzy has ended, I continued to fish, which also meant that I would unlock level fishing later that night. On the way to the blacksmith on day 59, I selected the Juicy Bugs Wanted quest, as there was no way I was going to be shipping 100 yams with my meager balance of 91 gold. Once I got to Clint's house, I was reminded of my lack of funds, as I was unable to upgrade my pickaxe to gold. Definitely.
We should have been
I don't have 1,000 gold. Okay, well. Eventually, I headed to the mines where I was killing as many bugs as I could find to hopefully complete the quest. I was also doing this at the higher floors of the mine, so I collected quite a bit of copper as an added bonus. On the morning of day 60, I immediately headed to the mines to make sure I would finish the quest in time. At around 3, Jared killed the last bug required for the Adventurers Guild Slayer requirements, but we still had a couple more to kill before finishing the quest, so we set back to work, with a short break for me to collect the reward of an insect head for the Adventurers Guild. The sword was relatively good, but not enough to trump my wonderful obsidian edge. Since we completed the kills requirement yesterday, we dropped by Willie's house this morning to drop off all 100 of our bug meat. The quest netted me 3,000 gold, and I used the prize ticket to claim an orange sapling from the prize machine, which I will definitely use. In the afternoon, I headed to Clint's house so he could crack open some of my geodes, and he didn't give me anything too amazing, but I did end up donating a jamborite to the museum. After that, I headed to the community center to donate 10 of my hardwood and complete the construction bundle, giving me a charcoal kiln, which can turn wood into coal. On the way back, I dropped by the saloon to say hi to Leah and ran home with Jared. Once I got there, I started chopping the large stumps on the farm to replenish my hardwood supply that I had just blown on the community center. My foraging efforts were not in vain, however, as overnight I hit level 5, where I selected the Gatherer perk, which would give a chance to double all foraged items. Day 62 started with smelting a bunch of copper, and I immediately headed to the mines to finally finish the mines, where I discovered a skull key on the floor 120. After that enormous victory, I went to the community center where I donated a hazelnut to the fall foraging bundle. I placed some gold bars in the fern eye to smelt overnight, and while sleeping, I leveled up to level 6 mining and level 4 combat. Day 63, it was a Sunday, which meant that the weekly gifts were reset. I headed into Leah's house at 10, as although it took me a while to realize that I was able to enter her house when it unlocked since 2 hearts. So from now on, I will be doing that. Anyways, I triggered a cutscene where it showed her working on the sculpture she gave me on the 1st of fall, because this is actually her 2-heart event, and the only reason it didn't trigger much earlier is because I'm an idiot who didn't know I could enter her house. She told me about how it was difficult to make ends meet as an artist, so I suggested for her to hold an art show in town. After the cutscene ended, I tried again to enter her house, and accidentally triggered her 4-heart cutscene, where I walked in on her arguing on the phone with her ex. She told me that he didn't support her art dream, so she dumped him and moved out here to Pelican Town. I told her it had to be done, and she agreed. Once I finally got into her house, she had already left for the day, but at least we're caught up on any Leah cutscenes. Eventually, I decided to fish while I waited for her to come home, but I ended up offering the salad to Jared and ended up just missing her. So, all in all, today was maybe the least progress I've ever made in the entire video. Day 64 started off with a farming level whilst harvesting my morning cranberries, and after shipping my harvest, I collected a berry basket for Linus over by the tunnel. After collecting it, I stopped by Linus's tent to drop it off, and while I was up that way, I donated a common mushroom, which finished the fall foraging bundle. I also handed Leah a salad while I was in town. When I got back to town, I tilled a pattern with gaps for sprinklers and planted my foraging seeds there. Once they were all planted, I cleared some more of the farm to end off the day. Also, whenever it's a cranberry day, I get 5,000 gold, which is always nice. Day 65, it was raining, but I placed down enough sprinklers to water the forageables, plus a little extra. I ran up to Robin's to upgrade my house, but when I got there, I didn't have enough wood. So I chopped down a few trees by the mines, and once I had enough, I bought the first house upgrade. On day 66, I decided to go to the mines, specifically floors 40 and onward, as I was in the need of iron. Once I left the mines, I put the iron I mined into the fern eye, and while they smelted, I accepted the Fragments of the Past quest, which required us to collect 100 pieces of bone, and drop them off at the counter of the museum. I placed down a couple more sprinklers before bed, and did my nightly routine of waiting half an hour for Jared to go to sleep. The morning of day 67, I had a ripe eggplant. After collecting that, I started work on placing paths all around the farm. After I finished working on the farm, I headed to the mine in an attempt to get the bone shards I needed for the quest. I woke up on day 68 to a brand new room in my house. Unfortunately, it messed up my chest room a bit, so I moved one chest to the other room and then moved my bed to the main room. After that, I cleared a bit of the farm before heading to the Adventurers Guild to sell some of my excess weapons. While I was there, Jared started donating some things to the museum, such as the red mushroom, fiddlehead fern, and pomegranate. On day 69, I harvested the cranberries in the rain, and before selling the berries, I checked the mail, which gave me the Master Slingshot, and I only collected it because I was already at the Adventurers Guild. I wanted to finish the quest today, so I headed back to the mines again to get some more bone fragments. I spent the rest of the day in the mines, and when I went to bed at 1 AM, I hit level 5 in combat. I selected the fighter profession, which gave me 10% more damage on all attacks. Day 70 started off with harvesting my ripe pumpkins. I was very close to finished with the quest for Gunther, so I headed back to the mines to murder any skeletons I could find. I finished the quest a little after midday, and Jared and I ran down to the museum to give Gunther his wares. In return for 4 days of non-stop killing skeletons, I was rewarded with 3,500 gold. On the way back, I grabbed the prize ticket, and later that day I dropped by Lewis's prize machine, and was given 15 mixed flower seeds. I will never use these. That night, I dreamt of leveling up to level 7 mining. Day 71, it was raining. I no longer need the rain due to my sprinklers being set up, but it just feels weird not to mention it at this point. When I checked the mailbox, I saw a letter from our favorite mayor, Lewis, which informed me of the Stardew Valley fair taking place in town the next day. I was told to bring 9 of my best items to display during the event, and after that, many of my forageables had grown, so I harvested them and dropped them in the shipping bin. Then I headed over to my favorite fishing place where I fished for a couple of hours, and then gave Leah a gift. After that, I hit up the quest board and selected the Gus's Famous Omelet quest, which would be entirely Jared's responsibility as I didn't have any chickens. While I was over that way, I also dropped off the 3rd installment of the Dwarf Scroll series at the museum. When I got home, I went AFK for a second, and Jared stole my copper bars from right under me. Day 72 started with fishing in front of Leah's house, as I was waiting for the Stardew Fair to begin. When we got there, I started making my rounds, talking to everyone who was there. Then I tried gambling a singular star token, and the bet won. After that, I tried out a fishing minigame, which was actually really easy, and my first attempt netted me 192 star tokens. As the businessman I am, I stuck to what I knew I was good at, and ended up getting some tokens from fishing. Then I tried gambling again, and decided to quit while I was less far behind after losing 100 tokens. I ended up playing the fishing minigame a couple more times, and eventually worked up the funds to get another star drop. After I purchased it, we started the event, and since we won 2nd place, we were given 500 star tokens, and with the extra, I ended up just purchasing a fedora. Day 73 started with Leah standing on my doorstep in the rain. She told me to come to the town center where she would be hosting an art show. I also decided to switch it up and fish in the river next to spawn, and I donated my catches of a tiger trout and walleye. Around 4, I left Pelican Town and immediately re-entered it to trigger the cutscene of Leah holding her art show. One of the notable pieces was the gift she had given me earlier, which I guess she stole back from me for a little bit to put in the show. All jokes aside though, the reason she has the piece is because this is the 4-heart cutscene still. And finally, I ended the day clearing the land with Jared. Leah sent me a letter thanking me for going to her art show on the morning of day 74, and it was still raining while I harvested the cranberries. After that, I ducked inside for some shelter from the rain, as well as the 3rd and final backpack upgrade. While I was at Pierre's, I also purchased a bouquet to give to Leah. She agreed to the relationship, and I now have a fictional girlfriend. Oh, how far I've come in this life. Later in the day, I donated a pumpkin to the community center and ran through the tunnel until it stopped us from going any further. Day 75 started with stealing some of Jared's cranberries. Then I dropped some iron in my fern eye and headed to the community center to see what we were missing. I stole some of Jared's eggs from his coop and donated one of them to the community center. And after that, I set to work fishing over by the river in town. Then I decided to go to the beach and found Willie fishing with the mountain of bug meat we had collected for him. And after it was over, I started fishing in the ocean. While I did that, Jared donated a red mushroom to the community center. On day 76, I dropped by Clint's once again to upgrade my pickaxe to gold. Then I saw Penny sitting alone under the canopy in front of the museum, and she told me that she was just enjoying the sound of the rain. I headed to the beach, and with the catch of my first ever sardine, I unlocked the Old Mariner achievement, which required me to catch 24 different fish. With the catch of a sea cucumber, I leveled up my fishing and continued to fish, as Luclord377 started playing Among Us in 2025. Oh wait, actually, this footage is really old. That might have been during 2024. The only time I moved fishing location was when a red snapper frenzy appeared one dock down from where I was. And finally, to end off the day, I dropped off a sardine and red snapper at the community center. Overnight, I realized that the fishing level got me to level 7. Speaking of 7s, day 77 started with harvesting the singular yam I had planted for the community center. I dropped it off at the community center, and that completed the fall crops bundle, which gave me a bee house. I dropped by my new girlfriend's house to give her a salad, and Emily caught Jared digging in the trash. This actually happens quite often, I just never mention it as it's basically a weekly occurrence. month. That night, I headed to the Adventurers Guild to sell a couple of weapons. Day 78, my pickaxe was ready, but I started the day fishing in front of Leah's house. After that, I picked up my pick from Clint and bought some more salads from Gus's, and investigated the question mark on the fridge in the saloon, which ended up being the place where we would put the eggs for his omelet request. Back at the farm with my fancy new pick, I destroyed the meteor that had been bugging me for weeks, and it dropped a bit more iridium for me. After deleting the meteor, I decided to clear some more space in the bottom of the farm. While I slept, Jared donated a fried egg and eventually joined me in sleeping. The following morning, I had 3 iridium bars to collect from the furnace. I stowed them away in my chest, as until I have 5 of them, they're relatively useless. I checked what we needed for the community center for a bit, and when I left the house, I noticed that my cranberries were ready. After Jared selected a quest requiring us to catch a tiger trout, I ran out of bait on my first cast, but continued anyways, and that was all I did for the rest of the day. I harvested a grand total of 2 cranberries in the rain on the morning of day 80, and went back to fishing. The catfish I caught was immediately donated to the community center, and then I went back to what I do best. I talked to Leah again today, and you may have noticed that I've been doing this a lot more recently, and that's because I am on a time crunch. See, I need to have max hearts and a rain day by the end of fall, or I'll be unable to buy the mermaid's pendant, which is required to propose to Leah. This is because the person who sells the pendant only comes out in the rain, and if you don't have max hearts with a suitable partner, he'll basically tell you that you're not ready yet. So since it doesn't rain in winter, I am desperately hoping that there's a rain day in these last 4 days of fall. Jared also donated a purple mushroom to the community center before the end of the day. Day 81. The weather is sunny, but that means nothing right now as I still don't have max hearts with Leah. I was set to work fishing as quickly as possible, as I only have 1 tiger trout, and the quest needs, I believe, 5 or 6. Jared started fishing with me today as he realized that at the rate I was going, I was not catching enough fish to finish the quest. I ended up catching 2 extra today, but that was not going to be enough to finish the quest in time. On day 82, I got a letter from Mayor Lewis that said there was a Spirits Eve festival, which is basically just the equivalent of Halloween. Anyway, the event takes place tomorrow, so we'll be attending that when it happens. I still thought I had a chance to finish the quest today, so I got to work fishing, to essentially no avail, but I did end up getting an ancient doll in a fishing chest, which I immediately donated to the museum. While I fished, Jared donated an oak resin, honey, and cherry to the community center. Day 83. It is still not raining, which is quite unfortunate, as tomorrow is the last day of fall. I decided to fish in front of Leah's house today, and that must give good luck as I leveled up fishing. Jared also decided to drop by, so I had a partner to fish with. Spirits Eve began at 10, and we got there almost as soon as it started. Of course, for fear of sounding like a broken record, I'll say it again, this event started with speaking to the villagers. Then Jared and I ventured through the maze to eventually get lost and give up. We came back though, and this time we made it to the treasure. After collecting our reward of a golden pumpkin, which can either be used as a universally loved gift, or can be sold for 2.5 thousand gold, we collected the strangely valuable prize and headed home. It's the last day of fall, and there's still no rain, which is sad, but on the bright side, I get 1 final harvest of cranberries before the season's over. After selling the harvest, I opened all my geodes up at the blacksmith and donated the 40th item to the museum, which gave me an achievement and a rare crow, which is just a scarecrow but has a cooler design. We'll have to collect all 8 of these to eventually complete the game, but that's a task for the future. The salad I gave Leah on the way back ended up getting me to 10 hearts with Leah, which would be great if it was raining. Jared finished the Gus's famous omelet quest, which got him the achievement Gopher, which was granted for completing 10 Help Wanted quests. I knocked on the door of who I now know as Elliot in one last desperate attempt to find the old mariner to marry Leah before it's too late. Then I collected my spoils from Jared's hard work and admired the grass in the valley for the last time before the winter snow would cover the land. I ran into the cinder sap forest and it triggered the 10 heart cutscene for Leah. She was trying to reach the fruit on a tree, so I picked her up and she could reach the fruit. She also said I was stronger than I look, which, how weak did she think I was? I spend all day every day farming, mining, and fishing. Anyways, I also got friend-zoned by my own girlfriend, so that was a fun time. And at the end of the day, I went to sleep in fall for the last time, and we woke up in Day 85 is the first day of winter, and honestly there's not much to do this season as we can't plant crops. Since I can no longer rely on natural rain, I now have a plan to marry Leah before Jared can. I also lost my 2 or 3 heart lead on Jared as he now had all winter to catch up. The plan is to grind foraging to level 9, which will unlock the recipe for the rain totem. I think I already have a beach totem in the reserves, and if I don't, I can craft one relatively easily. So the plan is to make a rain totem and activate a rainy day when Jared's not expecting it. Then I'll teleport to the beach with my rain totem and speak to the old mariner, who will sell me a mermaid's pendant. Once I have this pendant, I'll see Jared running to the beach on my way to give Leah the pendant, and laugh at him for wasting his time. The plan was flawless. Long story short, I'll be grinding foraging like a madman this season. Anyway, the season started off by stealing most of Jared's sprinklers, as he was borrowing some from me for a good while now. Then I cleared my own farm and placed some sprinklers where I would plant next spring. While I started work on my foraging plan, Jared began construction on a house upgrade of his own. I leveled up foraging from a crocus plant that morning, and Jared donated a large milk and maple syrup to the community center. After that, I headed to the beach where I started hoeing the ground so I could find the winter forageables. And once I got them, I donated the snow yam and crocus to the community center, which completed the winter foraging bundle. I planted the winter forage seeds that night and headed off to bed, where I hit level 6 foraging. Day 86 started off with a strange encounter. When I entered the Pelican Town bus stop, I saw a shadowy figure similar to the ones in the mines around floor 80 and onward. I didn't learn much about the mysterious figure, and it ended up running away from me. I dropped by Lewis's house and dropped off the prize ticket from a couple of days prior, and I ended up getting 3 mystery boxes. After that, I got a tip from Jared that the shadow guy was hiding out behind a bush by the playground, and I don't have the slightest clue how you would find this out in a blind playthrough, or one where you can't Google anything. Anyways, from this encounter, I ended up getting a magnifying glass, which now made it possible for me to find secret notes, which, similar to the books in this game, I would need to collect all of them for perfection. After that, I decided that, as a change of pace, I would chop some trees down in Cindersap Forest this time, as opposed to our farm. I chopped late into the night and planted a couple of tree seeds before bed. When I woke up on the morning of day 87, I planted some more seeds in my makeshift tree farm, and when I received a notification that a train was passing through Stardew Valley, I immediately ran up to the train tracks to reap any possible rewards. After getting nothing from that endeavor, I set to work chopping more trees in the farm, and uncovered a weird obelisk thing in the top left corner of the farm. And if I'm being so honest, at the time of writing, about 4 days away from spring of year 3, I still have no clue what this does. Day 88, I had my priorities straight, and set to work immediately on my lofty foraging goal. I'll have to pause on my foraging for a bit, as I dropped off my axe at Clint's today, and while I was there, I also opened some mystery boxes, and this time I ended up getting coffees and triple shot espressos, which are just a better version of the basic coffee. I placed a couple more chests in the second room of my house, and Jared dropped off his first oak resin at the community center. I'm also realizing while editing this that it looks like Jared's doing much more than me as far as the community center goes, but probably around a quarter of his donations, and whenever he needs anything else, is often stolen from me. Just thought I'd mention that. Anyways, the chests I made were for organizational purposes, as I decided that during the cold and cropless winter, I would set to work getting organized and getting the farm set up for a far more successful year 2. I ran up to the still broken bridge next to the Adventurers Guild, as Jared was convinced it was to be repaired, but we would have to wait for the night for that, as the Junimos are nocturnal apparently. I headed back into town at around 9, as I was going to buy a couple more salads with my additional funds. When I entered the saloon, I was surprised to have triggered a cutscene from the Gus's famous omelet quest, which had some of the villagers eating, well, Gus's favorite omelet. I think it was pretty self-explanatory, to be quite frankly honest. Overnight, we watched the Junimos repair the bridge, and Jared's house upgrade was completed. The bookseller was in town on day 89, but I instead decided to make my way over to the quarry, where I made tons of money off of breaking all the valuables. After that, I followed Jared into the weird foggy cave, and I originally left, but eventually decided to go back in. I'm glad I did, however, as interacting with the statue at the very back of the cave gave me a golden scythe, which I'm actually pretty sure it's the same as the steel one. That ended up taking all day, so I ran home through the night. Day 90, I got a notification telling me that my steel axe was ready. With this new knowledge, I ended up waiting in front of the blacksmith's while I waited for it to open, and once it did, I collected my axe. I gave Leah a salad out of habit, and I ended up googling how to get to the secret woods, where I discovered it was in the top left corner of the Cindersap Forest. I spent the last couple of hours of the day chopping trees surrounding the lake. The next day, Pierre dropped by and told me that if I keep buying seeds, I'll be twice as productive next year. And yeah, that's what having more seeds means. After that, I headed to the beach where I leveled up foraging by gathering a shell. I then waited for Willie to open shop, and once he did, I purchased the heftily priced iridium rod. Apparently, I wasn't keen on trying it out, however, as I collected the forage from the left side of the beach along the bridge, and left. Also, Jared finally hit 10 hearts with Leah, and I donated some glass shards to the museum. I checked the stock of the traveling cart, and when it had nothing I wanted, I headed to the secret woods, which was actively being cleared out by Jared. Since I couldn't get foraging XP from the secret woods, I cleared the farm a bit before bed. That night, I hit level 7 foraging. I must have found a book while clearing out the farm yesterday, and upon consuming it, I was granted a permanent +1 defense, which would be very nice due to my limited armor capabilities. Since there was apparently a festival today, I cleared some land before we headed to it. Once we arrived, we talked to all the villagers, and I bought a rare crow from the shop. Anyways, the ice fishing competition began, and I was determined to win, and I did. The reward seemed better at the time than I know it is now, but I was given 3 different bobbers and a sailor's hat. It was 10 when we got back, but I still wanted to get to the secret woods, so I did that. Day 93 began with a bountiful harvest of my winter forageables. After selling them, I headed back over to the secret woods and ran around town like a chicken with its head cut off, looking for the reward of a secret note, as Scorpion GD had told me that I could find something there. Turns out you need to actually have the note to collect the reward, so the endeavor ended up being completely fruitless. I did end up making nearly 5k on foraging though. I'm starting to notice a pattern, as on the morning of day 94, I headed to my favorite secret spot over in the woods. When I was done with that, I decided to try out the new tackles. I then made Jared buy my old rod for 1.7 thousand gold, which is actually really quite funny. There was also this one fish that kept evading me, and I grew increasingly more determined to catch it as the night dragged on. Unfortunately, I never did. Day 95, I wanted revenge on the fish that had wronged me the night before. If I'm being completely honest, I don't think it spawns until night, and I was just never catching it. Even though I never caught the fish, I did end the day fishing next to Jared, and donating a sturgeon to the community center on the way home. Luckily for me, my obsession for fishing right now is paying off, as I ended up getting nearly 3,000 gold today off of basically fishing alone. Day 96, I got a letter from the wizard asking for a void essence. Normally I don't mention the letters asking for stuff, and the only reason I'm mentioning this one is because the wizard's notes are cool as hell. Look at this background. Anyways, that's enough fangirling over the wizard's letter supplier, as I headed over to the secret woods to make my rounds. On my way over, Jared donated a skeletal tail and prehistoric hand axe to the museum. I picked up a prize ticket on the way and donated the chicken statue I had found at a dig spot earlier today. After that, Jared donated a calcite to the museum, and I gave the community center my wood skip I had nipped from the pond in the secret woods while I was there. I also bought the 5,000 gold bundle in the vault, which was absolutely not worth it for the 30 quality fertilizer reward, but whatever. I put away my hardwood reserves, and I noticed that I had a solid stack of 65 hardwood. This will immediately get demolished when Jared starts upgrading his coop and barn. Right before bed, Jared made his way to the community center to donate a maple syrup. I went down the beach to drop off some newly crafted crab pots and realized that I had completely forgotten to attend the Squid Fest. But hey, at least I still made 3,000 gold from fishing. First thing, day 97, I collected my iron bars I had left in the fern eye overnight. Upon crafting myself a preserves jar, I was rewarded with the DIY achievement, rewarded for crafting 15 different items, and it is absolutely insane to me that I had only made 14 up to this point. Then I made some more crab pots and put them down with the others, and while I was there, I noticed the ongoing Squid Fest. Since I was already there, I decided to participate in the event, as I mean, there was no entry fee, so why not fish for squid? After catching the first one, I talked to him again and noticed that the board said that I couldn't get anything yet, as I needed 2 squid at the very minimum. Jared joined me that night, as he is really bad at time management for some reason, and anyways, I left the night with 5 squid to my name, and left the event without talking to the shop vendor, as I figured I'd get the reward in the mail, since it had like medals and stuff on the sign, and I didn't really think that you would have to turn in the medals to the guy. I don't even know what I was thinking. Long story short, I never got anything. Day 98, we are halfway through the final season. I checked the mail and I was told that there would be a fleet of traveling merchants at the beach for the next 3 days. This event would take place at night, and it would have good rewards and shops for us to purchase and receive rewards. After that, I sold majority of my spoils from the day prior, as I kind of had to make it to bed quite quickly last time. Since I didn't know what else to do, I made my way to the secret woods to chop some more trees. While I was there, Jared donated a snail and periwinkle to the community center. The community center notifications reminded me of my crab pots, which were placed there for the crab pot bundle in the fish tank. So I headed down to grab whatever was caught overnight. And once I had everything, I restocked the bait and headed home for some reason, where I collected my iron and restocked the fern eye. I did eventually make it to the community center that night and ended up donating a tuna. We were at the point now where we knew we had to lock in, as both of us had now watched hours of Stardew videos, so we knew that completing the community center in year 3 would be embarrassing. So in the year 2 video, we will definitely be locking in on that. Side note, this video took forever to edit and write the script, so I'm already done with year 2 at the time of writing, and let me just say there's a surprising thing that happens like right at the end of that video, so I guess I'll see you in the next 4 months that one takes. I started day 99 off with collecting my iron bars. Then I headed to the beach to check my crab pots? I guess the traveling market might have deleted my crab pots. I hope it's only temporary though, as those things are not exactly a cheap crafting recipe at this point. Since Jared's never gonna do it, I headed over to the secret woods and got that nice hit of daily foraging XP. And after I was done, I paid Jared 5,000 gold, pooling our money together to buy the final vault upgrade. I also leveled something up from a dig spot on the way, and I really have no clue which skill gets XP from dig spots. Anyways, Jared bought the final vaults upgrade, and the refurbished vault room looks very snazzy if I must say. The reward was a crystallarium, and although we don't really need it now as we barely know what it does, we will be fiending for it when the time comes. Since I actually had the secret note this time, I decided to look for a certain golden mayor behind his house, and lo and behold, I found it, which was actually quite surprising. I'm pretty sure the story plot is that he's embezzling town funds for his own, questionable spendings, so that's cool I guess. After I got it, I decided to go to the night market, which was running tonight. When I got there, I was given free coffee and attended this strange mermaid show, which I almost immediately left as soon as possible. That night was full of surprises and things I forgot about. Namely, the Junimos were shown repairing the bus, and I also hit level 8 foraging. Today is a special day, as the day counter now has triple digits. And also, if I named this video my first 100 days in Stardew Valley, I guess I was technically lying, as we're gonna finish off the year, so technically it's 112 days of Stardew. Oh, and I forgot to mention yesterday that the person who told me to get the statue in the first place, Scorpion, also told me to leave it out in the road, and I'm guessing that this was the secret project that Lewis was referring to in his letter. Speaking of old Lewis, he must hate in-person confrontation, as he greeted me cheerily when I burst into his house looking for the prize machine. Have I said anything yet about how weird it is to put the prize machine inside his house? Anyways, the reward this time was a Star Drop Tea, which is essentially a universally loved gift, meaning that if I give this to someone on their birthday, they will instantly gain 4 hearts, I believe. Making out like a bandit, I saw that the bus was open, and the town drunk was standing outside. But hey, I guess it's really not the drunk drivers who get us in trouble, it's the drunk crashers. So of course, I bought a ticket and was driven to the desert. I think it went pretty smoothly, although I guess it'd be pretty hard for Pam to crash when there is not a single other car on the road. Anyways, when I got there, I collected some forage, chopped down a few trees, you know the gist. Anyways, I entered a building that said Oasis and saw a lady with pink hair. Evidently, Emily has been writing to her about me, which is kinda weird because I never talked to Emily. But anyways, she seemed happy to learn that the bus line was back in service. She didn't really have anything too beneficial to me, so I kinda just dipped. Then I went into a cave and found a skull with a button that did absolutely nothing. Could this be the legendary Skull Cavern? I checked the floor and sure enough, yes it was. Unfortunately, the first floor was infested, and since this sword does literally nothing to these enemies, it took us quite a while to complete the floor. But we went to work, getting down as far as we could today. On floor 5, there was no elevator, which is a mild concern, but Jared ended up passing out, and unfortunately, I wasn't far behind. Things were looking up a little, however, as that night we had learned that we had made 250,000 gold this year. Day 101, I got a letter from a mysterious Mr. QI, which I don't remember meeting. Anyways, he ended up giving us a quest to get to floor 25 in Skull Caverns for what is, in his direct words, a mountain of gold to send to us if we can do it. By the way, I've been pronouncing his name Key, and Jared's been calling him Quee. So if you could let us know who's correct in the comments, that'd be great. When Pam was ready to drive the bus at 10, I headed to Skull Caverns. But I ended up stalling for Jared to arrive as the floors I got had mummies on them, which at the moment are impossible for us to kill, and the best we can do at the moment is knock them out. I ended up giving up at floor 2, which is a terrible score, but we needed a sandfish at some point anyways, so I set to work fishing. After I caught it, I headed back to the comfort of Pelican Town and donated the sandfish to the community center. Day 102, I was informed of an upcoming secret Santa type thing called the Feast of the Winter Star, where you would discreetly be given a person who you would give something to, and then someone else would give you a gift. This year, my secret friend was Jody, which is unfortunate as she has expensive taste. I decided I was going to give her a diamond upon researching it further, and after that I headed to the secret woods, as I was becoming aware that the winter was ending soon, and I still wasn't even level 9 foraging, let alone had the materials to make a rain totem. I also gave Rasmodius the void essence he asked for a couple of weeks ago, which fetched me 1,000 gold and some friendship, a worthy exchange in my book. The bookseller is in town once again on day 103, and let's see if I actually remember to go this time. The night market was now over, so I headed down to the beach to learn that thankfully my crab pots were back. After that, I got my inventory nice and cleared up, and we headed to the Skull Caverns. As of our current gear status, it's pretty much crucial that we go together. Not that he was much of a help though, as I still ended up dying on floor 11. That night, Jared brought me a beer to drown out my PTSD from the mines today, and we decided to drunkenly play arcade games at the saloon. I didn't do amazing, probably because of the alcoholic state, but at least I made it to the second stage this time. Today was a record for winter earnings, as I made just shy of 4,000 gold, most of which was from my small batch of jelly. And this is where I learned that kegs and preserve jars are actually overpowered. On day 104, Emily was at my door for some reason, and she told me that since I'd gotten some cloth, I could use her sewing machine at any time. The gesture was nice, but I still think it's funny that I'm pretty sure the only piece of cloth I found is from a letter she sent me, so she provided the cloth and sewing machine. I only have 8 days left before rain can spawn naturally again, so I'm going to the secret woods today. Then I dropped any extra forage that I could find into my preserve jars, filling all but one of them. After that, I watered mine and Jared's crop fields, and he took me over behind a stump to get a book that makes trash more common. The day ended off with collecting my gold before bed, and while I was trying to fall asleep, Jared accepted a robin request, which is almost always hardwood. I'm still planting powder melons on day 105, mainly because if they don't grow, I won't really care all that much. I chopped some trees and headed into Robin's to give her the 10 hardwood she had requested, and I reaped the rewards of 500 gold. I stopped by the traveling cart, and when I realized it had nothing I wanted, I went to the secret woods, and after I was done, started chopping some trees down in the cindersap forest. I also saw this vendor who looked like a mouse, and their storefront said that they sold hats, which I'm guessing that this is the hat mouse from way back in like day 15 of spring or something. Day 106, I am determined to get level 9 foraging before winter, so after a full day of foraging, it's back to the secret woods for me. Then I grabbed a prize ticket and donated a rusty spur and arrowhead to the museum. The ticket I got ended up being a fancy bed, which I was immediately going to replace my old one with, and goodness gracious, it meshes so much better with the futon bear than the old one did. We decided to go to Skull Caverns today, and although Jared died, today was rather successful. The following day is going to be a good day for money, as all the preserves jars are filled. After that, I had an epiphany that my chests were actually not organized at all, even though I told myself I would, so I just kind of worked on that for most of the day. It's day 108 now, which means that we have less than 5 days left in this video, which is absolutely insane, by the way. I got a note that said that tomorrow was the Feast of the Winter Star, and if I'm being fully honest, I completely forgot that we had that. That's probably just because we have had 2 additional recordings in between now and the original time we learned about it, and even during a new recording session, you already know I gotta hit the secret woods today, and that hardwood stockpile is looking really good. Anyways, I smelted more copper today, and ended the day by looting the small amount of ore that has built up in the quarry. That night, I hit level 6 combat from the slimes in the secret woods, which is pretty funny. Day 109 is the 25th of winter, which means it's time for the Feast of the Winter Star. Once there, of course, we talked to all the villagers, yada yada yada. I gave Jody her 750 gold gift of a diamond, and that triggered the cutscene for my gift giver. Who will it be? It's Jazz. Bro, she's a child. She has no money to get me anything good. She gave me 1 singular piece of clay. Is this some kind of sick joke? Moving on, day 110 is gonna be a good day, as my preserve jars are ready. I kind of forgot to stockpile money for spring crops next season, but whatever, I'm sure I'll get there eventually. It's the last 2 days of winter, and probably too late, but I headed to the secret woods anyways, as it's not just kind of a part of my day-to-day chores. I decided to go to Skull Caverns today, and eventually, Jared joined me. And he died pretty quick, so I just kind of headed home as there was no way I was making any progress alone. I went the long way to the quarry, story today just because I felt like it and almost died in the foggy mines. And while mining for copper, I learned that occasionally in the regular mines, we now have a chance to have a floor be foggy, which I guess is kinda cool, but I personally just find it a little annoying. Anyways, I kept mining for a short bit and eventually met Jared at Robin's because apparently he doesn't have the permission to move buildings, so I had to do it for him. It took all day, but he eventually settled on an arrangement that wasn't terrible, I guess, but it was still pretty bad. The reason that this layout is so goofy is because he's planning to put the greenhouse between his house and mine, and then he'll move the animal houses over by where the greenhouse was. Day 112 is the last day of the year, and conveniently, also this video. Since Jared and I knew that we would have to plant some more crops this spring, we started planning out where we would have fields with these paths. For some reason, I decided that this was the pathing I wanted, and in hindsight, I now realize that it's actually mad ugly. Since I would need more sprinklers if I planned to have a bountiful first harvest, I smelted some gold near the end of the day. Near the end of the day, I also prepped for spring by keeping a beach totem in my inventory, as I was planning to still use a part of my master plan to marry Leah before Jared could. But I guess you'll have to wait to see who marries her in the next video, because that was my first ever year in Stardew Valley. Day 113 is the first day of spring, and accordingly, this video. And of course, it's so good to be back on Mangala Farm. I grabbed some bars from my ferneye before meeting a war vet named Kent on my doorstep. After saying hello, I ran over to Pierre's to purchase some spring seeds, and during the wait, I looked at the lofty goal of completing the community center this year. Once Pierre opened, I spent literally all of my money on 200 potato seeds, and started hoeing the ground to plant the seeds. After I got them all planted, I realized that, due to my lack of sprinklers, I would need to water 166 potato seeds every single day. Once I realized that, I started putting some ores in the ferneye because I wanted to make more sprinklers. I got as many potatoes down as I could, which was still somehow less than half, and I was working well past midnight to get some fertilizer on them. On day 114, I only had to water around half of the potatoes from the day prior, as around half of them were covered by the range of my quality sprinklers. Once they were all watered, I set to work expanding the field to contain the rest of the seeds that I couldn't plant yesterday. I took a short break around 3 to open some geodes, and I got some star shards to donate to the museum. When I got home, I went to bed so I could regain some of the energy spent on the fields this morning. And by the end of the day, I somehow managed to get every single potato in the ground and watered, and I promptly went to bed at 10. Unsurprisingly, day 115 starts with watering the potatoes again, and at this point, I'm really starting to regret not upgrading my watering can last season. Next to me, I saw Jared's field falling into disarray, as he still has not purchased his seeds yet. I was done watering everything by midday, and with the extra time, I decided to descend to the mines with Jared, as he wanted to experiment with an Easter egg from Terraria, in which he threw a doll into the lava on floor 100, which is similar to the summoning of the Wall of Flesh from Terraria. Unfortunately, you need higher hearts with the wizard to access the back room of his house, which is a requirement for the later parts of this quest. And while Jared was learning that he was soft-locked on the quest for now, I was hit with a Leah cutscene. In it, I found Leah setting up a picnic when her ex arrived, and I ended up punching him in the face. After that, I headed to the wizard's house and gave him a leek. I didn't have much time left in the day, so I decided to hit up the secret woods really quickly and gathered my daily 12 hardwood. Day 116, it is finally raining. And if you watched my last video, you might know that rain is extremely crucial, as Jared and I are both max hearts with Leah, and we both need to buy the mermaid's pendant. However, look at my balance. As you can see, this does not say 5,000. Instead, it says 4,958. That is less than 5,000, and therefore I can't afford the mermaid's pendant. So I now have to wait until it turns 9 for Pierre's to open to sell him one singular mushroom. And when he finally opened, I sold the mushroom and immediately used my beach totem to purchase the pendant. For some reason, Jared still hasn't given it to her yet, and maybe he didn't have the funds. I don't know, but on my way there, he asked Leah to marry him. Well, that was a massive waste of 5k, so I just lost out on marrying Leah by one single mushroom. On top of that, in the first 5 days of this video, I have already lost the biggest thing I was teasing in the last one. But I guess you'll have to wait to see who marries her in the next video, because that was my first ever year in Stardew Valley. I was kind of at a loss for what I should do for the rest of the day, and I kind of just stood still. Day 117 started off by watering my crops and not knowing what to do after that. I slept for a little after watering the crops to gain some energy, and somehow it was already 125 before I did anything at all meaningful today. That being sadly standing in Jared's field while he planted his potatoes. Day 118, surprisingly enough, I was watering the potatoes. However, this time Jared was watering his as well. He was doing it a lot faster, not only because he has less crops planted, but also because he has an upgraded watering can. I'ma be honest, I must have really committed to this bit because I basically did nothing all day again. The morning of day 119 was a happy one. Well, at least for Jared, as the cutscene for his wedding with Leah played today. And after that, we watered our plants and Jared was trying to show me something, but I guess the animation was broken. It is already day 120 and we are flying through these days. Anyways, today started off by finally harvesting the potatoes I spent the last week of blood, sweat, and tears to grow. And since I was finally free from the potato watering, today I decided to go to the mine so I could gather some ore to make more sprinklers, in order to make it so that I would never have to water another crop ever again. The entire harvest of potatoes fetched me 30,000 gold that night. Day 121, it was raining, which doesn't matter at all as I don't have any potatoes planted. I headed up to Robin's to commission myself a coop this morning, but I didn't have the materials for it. So I ended up chopping some trees and clearing out the quarry for the materials. It worked out pretty well as I ended up purchasing a coop before Robin's closed. After I bought the coop, I went back to chopping in an attempt to replenish my now criminally low wood supply. Day 122, it was still raining, and where was this weather during the potato season? I would also like to mention this crystallarium in the corner of my kitchen, in which I'm duplicating quartz, which will turn into refined quartz, and eventually into advanced sprinklers. Anyways, I put a batch of quartz into the furnaces, and crafted and placed more quality sprinklers. The end of the day consisted of chopping the trees in the quarry, and gathering copper in the upper levels of the mines. And that night, I was rewarded with level 9 foraging, only 11 days too late. Day 123, the bookseller was in town, and for the first time in this series, I actually decided to buy some books today. Well, some books implies it was multiple, but in reality, I only ended up buying the price catalog, which is an extremely helpful tool to show me the price of any item in my inventory. On my way back to the farm, I ended up buying 500 potato seeds, which is just a little bit overzealous of me, and there is literally no chance I'm watering these every day. Since I needed a bit more space, I also deleted my tree farm and replaced it with more sprinklers. By the end of the day, I was only able to plant around half of the potatoes. Day 124 was another rainy day, which was an absolute lifesaver, as most of my energy today will just be spent on expanding the endless field of potatoes. I planted literally all day, and near the end, I realized just how cooked I was, and placed down a couple of my old basic sprinklers for the 4 free tiles that they'll water every day. Day 125, I immediately got to work on the hefty job that is watering my potatoes. This is basically all I'm gonna do until they're fully grown, but don't worry, they only have 4 days left, I believe. Whilst I watered the crops with my base level watering can, I also got a notification that the Egg Festival was today. But unfortunately, if I were to go to the Egg Festival, the chance of getting all the crops watered was low. Clearly that was the case as I wasn't finished watering until 12 o'clock that night. On day 126, I watered the potatoes for literally the entire day. However, that night I did manage to turn my ancient fruit into seeds and planted them in the upper left of my farm. While we slept, a fairy flew over the crop fields and blessed some of Jared's potatoes, which gave them some free growth stages. Day 127, what a surprise, I'm still watering potatoes. I promise this will be done soon. I haven't really been mentioning this a ton, but this field is actually so big that due to my lack of food, I actually have to sleep in between watering it, because otherwise I will pass out before I can water every potato. In theory, day 128 should be the last day I need to water around half of this field, and then I can move all the sprinklers to the unwatered area. I took a little detour just to get over to the Calico Desert, as today there was a fair going on. The premise was to collect the festival's currency called Calico Eggs, but unfortunately I had literally no clue what the best way to get them was, and I ended up dying on floor 18 with just 4 eggs to my name. When I woke up, I failed some trivia and got dripped out in a funeral fit from Emily's stand. By the time I got home, I realized that like half of my field was left unwatered, but I kinda just went to bed anyways. I don't really know what I was thinking, to be honest. Day 129, the fruits of my labor finally paid off with a massive potato harvest in the morning. After harvesting the ready potatoes, I grabbed the sprinklers that I had originally had in the top half of the field and moved them down to the bottom, which in hindsight, I probably should have done that last night so that the potatoes could have actually been watered today. Due to my unfortunate mistake, the last part of my day was spent watering the crops for hopefully the last time. That night, I was rewarded with 30,000 gold for my efforts. Day 130, the other half of the potatoes are finished growing, and that means that I'm finally done watering the crops for the entire day, and I can finally get back to the important stuff, like, I don't know, watering Jared's crops. Yeah, honestly I don't remember why I did this. After that I sent Jared 600 gold for some reason, and then headed to the cold floors of the mines so I could gather some more iron. And yeah, that was pretty much all I did that day. Once I went to bed, I was met with level 10 farming and a choice of my final profession, where I selected artisan, as I knew that I would eventually be utilizing the surprisingly valuable wine made from kegs. Surely artisan goods is the one I want, right? That'll be so good when we have kegs. I'm doing artisan. As well as another 30,000 gold from the other half of the potatoes. Okay, on day 131, I have a couple more potatoes to harvest, those being the ones that I missed on day 128, but that should finally be the last of my potato harvest. After the final harvest, I went to my foraging chest and blew all of my tree seeds on some field snacks, as they low-key gave much better energy than I had expected. And with my new food source, Jared and I decided to hit up Skull Caverns today, but not before I collected the forageables lying around. Jared died around 7 that night, and I decided to head home after realizing just how fruitless it would be to try to finish this monster floor. I then dropped off my inventory in my chests and hit the hay. Oh yeah, and the last potato harvest got me like 10k. Day 132, I'm harvesting copper again. And after a while, I bought 800 potato seeds. I'm sure this was a phenomenal idea. I got down around 300 of them before nightfall and headed to bed. Day 133, I went to the mines to get some gold to make more sprinklers. Unfortunately for me though, I passed out in the regular mines, which is exceedingly embarrassing. When I got home, I cleaned up the parts of my farm that fell into disarray, and I must not have learned from my mistakes as I planted down 275 potato seeds that I would have to water every day. Day 134, not only was the bookseller in town, but it was also raining, which meant that I had another day to scrounge up as many sprinklers as I could. And so, in the rain today, I also decided to expand my crop field even more, as well as placing down some temporary basic sprinklers. I also trashed almost 120 potato seeds when I realized I was biting off more than I could chew, which was a massive waste of 6,000 gold, but I digress. I then spent, honestly, far more wood than I expected in order to get some coal for the charcoal kilns, and headed back to the gold layer of the mines. I only got like, I think 2 sprinklers down today, so in a stroke of genius, I crafted a ton of retaining fertilizer and hoped that like 30% of the crops would stay watered the next morning. Day 135, I walked outside, and I mean, yeah, it kinda worked. I did still have to water like 90% of the non-sprinkler crops though, but when that was done, I headed to the mines for another gold run in the afternoon. But the watering took so much longer than I thought it would. It's all gonna be worth it though when I don't have to water any of my blueberries this summer. Day 136 is the 24th of spring, which can only mean one thing. The flower dance is happening today. Since the dance is open from 9 to 2, I told Jared that I would go when my crops were all watered, which got him to help me water them. We made it to the dance, and unfortunately, it dawned on me that for the second year in a row, I wouldn't have a partner to dance with. If you recall from the last video, I said, maybe next year, I want you this year. Next year, I'll have Leah. This is devastating. Next year, I will not have Leah, because Leah is married now. How did I manage this, bro? I really don't even have 4 hearts with anyone else. On day 137, I watered all of my crops, and then went to Clint's to open geos, which got me a dolomite that I gave to the museum. After that, I used a prize ticket and got 4 mushroom logs. Day 138, the first batch of potatoes was ready. However, this time, instead of selling them, I decided to wait until the other ones were ready as well, and then sell them all at once. I also dropped off 5 of the golden quality potatoes over at Pierre's shop in return for 2,500 gold and the gopher achievement. After that was done, there wasn't much time left in the day, so I decided to go to the secret woods and get the hardwood before heading home. It is the second to last day of spring, and today I thought that the rest of the potatoes would be ready. But in reality, only a couple of stragglers are, and hopefully the others would grow tomorrow, because if they didn't, that's probably like 30k worth of seeds that are gonna just die. Once I was done getting the few potatoes, I organized my chest room and then headed to the secret woods. Jared also finally started fishing since we both want to get mastery in this video. Day 140 is the final day of spring, and luckily the potatoes are ready. I also sold all of the potatoes today, including the ones from the 2 days prior. I then stopped at the traveling cart and saw a rare seed that I didn't buy. That's fine, it's not like I'm growing a rare seed in a garden pot inside my house because it's out of season now. I hate my past self. Anyways, after that, I decided to go to, you guessed it, the secret woods. Oh, and also here I am leaving, and you can see Jared buying the rare seed. I was gonna go somewhere, but I guess I forgot, and I ended up fishing next to Jared in the secret woods, and what the heck is that? I stopped looking at the rod and I was just like, what the heck is that? After passing out that night, I got level 9 fishing and 80,000 gold off of potatoes. Day 141 is the first day of summer, and it started off with a note from Linus saying that he robbed me. I was gonna go over to Pierre's, and then I realized that he doesn't open till 9, so I decided to clean up my farm for the first part of the day and move my sprinklers back up. And turns out that I have 48, which is much more than I thought. And eventually I made my way over to Pierre's, and this time I was hit with a cutscene, which included Pierre trying to sell my produce that he paid me 2,500 gold to get for the steep price of 25,000 gold. Everyone else who was shopping piled on the Pierre hate train, and eventually he realized that if he upsets his customers, he will have none left. I tilled the ground as fast as I could when I got home at 5, and unfortunately, I passed out with only about half of my seeds in the ground. I woke up on day 142 and immediately planted down the rest of my blueberries. Unfortunately, they'll now be out of sync with each other and they will grow one day apart. And if you look at that, I am missing 3 seeds, which was probably just a calculation error. But this season, I'm never watering a plant, as I calculated the correct number of seeds this time, and it took me quite a while to learn that that should be what I'm doing. After the blueberries were out of sight and out of mind for the next 13 days, I decided to set up a small farm utilizing small sprinklers, where I'm farming melons for the quality crop bundle. I only got 56, but that should be enough since I'm a level 10 farmer. I sound like I'm in like an ad read. I'm a level 10 farmer. Day 143, I collected a prize ticket and then forgot to use it. I then just prepped my inventory for a Skull Caverns run and headed over there. Also, I just realized that I never mentioned why I'm wearing mouse ears, and that's just because I bought them from the Hat Mouse at some point. Also, because I'm in my furry era, or just a Disney kid, I don't even know. Anyways, Jared died a little bit before midnight on floor 23, and I decided to head home with a farm totem that I'd bought. Free from my prison of watering crops, I decided to head to Skull Caverns again today, and this time Jared wasn't with me, and somehow, probably because Jared is terrible at the game, I managed to make it to floor 24 by myself by 5 o'clock, which is much faster and further than yesterday's dive. And I don't even think it had anything to do with the daily luck, as I'm pretty sure the reason he didn't want to go was because the luck was terrible. After he learned how far I was, he decided to come down, and bruv really passed out before he even got to my level. I decided to call it quits on floor 26 at 9 o'clock, which was earlier than I probably needed, but I was just kinda scared I'd pass out since I didn't have a farm warp totem today. When I got home, I collected my finished bars and put some more ore in the furnaces to cook overnight. Day 145 started with a fresh iridium bar in one of the ferni, and this bar was the first one that I got from Skull Caverns as opposed to just finding it in mystery boxes. I guess I decided to sleep in today as I didn't move from the bed until 7:40. The new iridium bar now meant that I had 5, and I spent them all on a pickaxe upgrade from the local blacksmith. Since I couldn't mine for the 3 days the pick was upgrading, I decided to spend the rest of my day fishing on the dock for a couple of fish we were missing for the community center, namely the pufferfish and tilapia. I might just be stupid though, because neither of them can be caught at the time I started fishing. Funnily enough, Demetrius asked me for a pufferfish today, and that is not happening as the first one is 100% going to the community center. Speaking of pufferfish, I made my way over to the beach today in an attempt to catch said pufferfish, and after selling my fish for the night, I ended up getting $7,500 from fishing. Day 147 started off by collecting my iridium pickaxe, and I must have had quite the one-track mind in this video, as today I'm going back to fishing for the pufferfish on the beach. I did not make much today, even though I sold my tilapia. It's such a bruh moment.
What should I name?
Name it
Child?
I Love Megazord.
It's a girl.
So? Are you being sexist over here? Wait, no, actually, I see the implications of the name now. No, I understand why you would be concerned by the gender. Jared had his first child on the morning of day 148 and decided to name it Noel. It was also raining today, which meant that basically the only fish I needed to catch this season can't be caught. So with nothing better to do, I decided to go to the cold floors of the mines to grind more iron ore for sprinklers. Day 149, for some reason I decided to use my precious beach totems to get there faster for maximum fishing potential. I fished for the entirety of the day, and despite his unprompted disdain for fishing, Jared eventually joined me on the dock later that night. Day 150 is the day before the luau. On a more important note, that afternoon around 1:30, I actually managed to catch a pufferfish. And after catching it, I made sure to run directly to the community center just to make absolutely sure that I wouldn't end up selling it to Willie or something. Oh, and also, I must have missed it, but I also caught that tilapia quite a while ago, and obviously donated it when I caught it. Anyways, now that I was hopefully done with fishing for this season, I decided to head to the mines, this time going to the gold floors to gather, well actually I think it's pretty obvious. That night when I got home, I put a rainbow shell and some cloth into the sewing machine, as I saw a short that said it would allow me to change the color of my clothes, and I wanted the signature blue hoodie. It, turns out I got the wrong recipe. Day 151, I don't have to fish anymore, so today I headed to the quarry first thing for some free resources. I also realized that I never mentioned, but we only have a couple of difficult bundles left, and we decided that Jared would get to do all the animal related ones since he already has a coop and barn, and then I would do all the fishing ones, which I believe all I have left now for that one is an eel. Anyways, now it's time for the luau, and unfortunately, since I completely forgot it was today, all I had to add to the soup was either a spiceberry or winter forage. I ended up donating a spiceberry, but when the governor tasted the soup, it seemed to be missing something. Day 152, the bookseller was in town. I've been mentioning this every time he visits for the last 152 days, and yet I have only gone once. Today, I also finally realized that I needed to marry someone else to 100% the game, so I decided to go with Haley. However, when I entered their house, I got an Emily cutscene where I was inside of her dream, and then I got another one where they were meditating with gemstones for some reason. By the time I got inside, Haley was nowhere to be seen, so I went and found her at the beach. I also gave Evelyn a pair of broken glasses on the way back, as apparently they're a loved gift for her. After that, I headed to the desert to get some more coconuts for Haley, with the added bonus of going to Skull Caverns. And finally, I ended the day in the secret woods. Day 153 started off by waiting in front of Haley and Emily's house so I can give Haley her coconuts from yesterday. When the house opened, I got a cutscene where Emily and I convinced Haley to do one singular chore every week. Anyways, I gave her the coconut and snooped around her room for a bit before heading to Skull Caverns with Jared. And then I dropped some ore in the Fern Eye. The green rain was going on during day 154, but that didn't stop me from gathering some of my finished ancient fruit and putting them in Jared's seed makers, before killing some of my blueberries and planting the new ancient fruit in their graves. I then dropped by the saloon in search of Haley, as last year the vast majority of the villagers were huddled up in there, but I guess that they learned it was harmless last year, as I ended up finding Haley in her house. I don't really have anything important to do today, so I decided to play some games in the saloon, and I am painfully bad at Junimo card. However, while I was doing that, Jared was actually doing something productive by donating hay, wheat, and apples to the community center, completing what I believe is the fodder's bundle. I didn't chop any trees until near the end of the day when I chopped down like 5 over by the bus stop. Day 155 is a special day because this is the first harvest of this season's blueberries, which is always exciting. Coincidentally, the melons I planted for the community center are also done today, which is just the cherry on top to an already phenomenal day for farming. Luckily for me, I did manage to get 5 quality melons. In fact, I got 10, which I immediately donated to the quality crops bundle, meaning that we only have to grow 5 more quality crops, those being whatever our choice is between pumpkins and corn. Pause! If you made it this far in the video, you probably really like it, and if you want to see more like this one and follow the series for whenever I drop a new episode, the best place to do that is my Discord. Don't worry, I won't flood your notifications, this one took me 2 months to make. As well as getting notified whenever I upload or stream, you can also interact with my small but awesome community of people who like the same games as you do. Also, you should definitely subscribe because I'm trying to get to 10,000 subs by 2026, and I have posted a grand total of 5 videos this year. Anyways, sorry for interrupting, let's get back to the video. Welcome back, hope you enjoyed the quick ad break. I heard that the person who said it had a really cool voice. But anyways, on the way back from the community center, I bought 56 more melon seeds, and replaced the harvest from this morning. After I got them all on the ground, I dropped by my future wife's house to give her another coconut, and then dropped by the secret woods on my way back to the farm. When I went to bed, my paycheck for the day rolled in, and with 70,000 gold from the blueberries and melons, I single-handedly doubled my current balance in a single day. On day 156, I am a 100,000-yonaire. Yeah, never mind, it doesn't really roll off the tongue. Anyways, in the morning, I set to work clearing some trees over in Cindersap, as I realized that I was level 9 in everything but combat, which meant that the possibility of unlocking mastery in this video is definitely not completely off the table. Obviously, if I'm doing a foraging day, you already know I stopped by the secret woods as well. I spent a little bit of time organizing my chests that afternoon, and ended the day with some more tree chopping, this time on the farm. I grabbed a prize ticket in town on the morning of 157, before waiting for Clint's to open so I could open some mystery boxes and geodes. Once I got them all opened, I dropped off a marble and opal to the museum. After that, I went over to the quarry again for some reason, and unsurprisingly, there wasn't much there since it hadn't been nearly long enough to regenerate the resources. However, I still managed to clear out the entire area, and at the end of the day, I bought some salad from Gus's, this time for food instead of as a gift for Leah. And while I was in town, I traded the prize ticket from this morning for a pomegranate sapling. On day 158, I collected the extra couple of straggling blueberries that hadn't gotten watered with the rest of them, and after that, I headed right back over to the corner of the farm for some more foraging XP. I managed to clear a good portion of the lower left of the farm before moving over to the secret woods. That afternoon, I smelted some more ores and crafted a couple more sprinklers so that fall would be even better for farming. Day 159 is already another blueberry harvest, and this is now going to be happening every 4 days, because blueberries take an initial count of 13 days to grow, and then once they do, they produce every 4 days. After the harvest, I realized that I had way more than enough money to justify another house upgrade, so I headed to Robin's to do just that. Yesterday, I realized that I was running very low on gold ore, so I headed to floor 80 to gather some more for the sprinkler expansion. I made a little under 60k that night as I didn't have any melons to sell during this harvest. Day 160 was another Skull Caverns run, as I needed to prioritize combat-related activities, since it's by far my lowest skill. I was there literally all day, and at the end of the day, I dropped some ores in the furnace to smelt overnight. I put some more bars in the furnace on day 161 and collected the older ancient fruit that had grown. After that, I placed more sprinklers branching out to the left of my area, which is the bottom half of the farm. Then I waited for Jared to finish turning his ancient fruits into seed before I could use the seed makers for the same thing. I ended up with 21 more seeds, which is cool since it's the 21st of summer. And after that, I went to the mines to get some more copper, and overnight I got the Living Large achievement, which meant that I woke up on day 162 with an entirely new room in my house. This is the last house upgrade that I needed for perfection, but if I wanted to get additional rooms, there are more for sale at Robin's, this time costing only gold and no resources. I added some more chests into the chest room, and then harvested the extra blueberries while Jared purchased a big coop. Since it was a Monday, I stopped by Emily and Haley's house, where I gave Emily a gemstone, but Haley wasn't there, so I had to run down to the beach to give her a coconut. After that, I remembered a counteraction to my habit of not being able to get all my seeds ready on the first of a season. So I gave Clint my watering can so it would be ready in time for fall. Then, to end off the day, I tried my best to move some chests over to the new room at the top left. Day 163 is another blueberry harvest, and I believe this is the penultimate one of this video, as there's now just 1 week left in summer. Anyways, the vast majority of the day was spent moving my chests to the other room, and then realizing that I wanted them in the room they were in initially, since the room I just put them in didn't have enough room for multiple rows of chests. I made this weird fence and torch setup to get them back, and hopefully it should make the return trip much faster. I was still moving the chests back to their original room on day 164, and this was actually much more difficult than I had hoped. However, even though it took me literally all of my energy, I did manage to get all the chests back in their initial location, and clean up the fencing I had put around my house, making me feel like I lived in one of those houses that are in like museums and stuff, where they're like behind glass walls to keep them preserved. I'll put a picture on screen if I don't already hate my life when I'm this far in the edit. I decided to go to Skull Caverns on day 165, and that was basically all I did all day. And today I got down to floor 38, which is like 20 floors further than the best ever run. I dropped some iridium in the furnace and headed to bed. Day 166, I collected the iridium bar and grabbed the straggler blueberries again. I waited patiently in the rain for Pam to get to the bus stop to do her job, and when she got there at 10, I purchased a ticket and headed to the non-raining desert, where I headed back to Skull Caverns, this time with Jared. It was 2 great runs back to back as I made it down to floor 30 today before heading home at midnight. On day 167, I put some of the iron ore from yesterday into my furnace to cook, and since it was a blueberry harvest, the next couple of in-game hours were preoccupied. I also got some more melons today, which meant that today was going to be an extra good day for profit. Around 2, I collected and restocked the ferni again, as I was planning to make a ton more sprinklers for fall, and I even placed some of them down today, making the farmland quite a bit bigger. And since I had some extra time, I decided to add a path down to the cindersap forest, so I wouldn't end up planting crops there. Oh, and also the farm had made a total of 1 million gold between Jared and I today. I had a couple more ancient fruit ready to harvest on the morning of day 168, and of course, I immediately turned them into seeds. And after putting more copper in the ferni, I picked up my hoe from Clint's and opened some more geodes, donating a soapstone, fairy stone, dwarf gadget, and basalt to the museum. At the end of the day, I placed a couple sprinklers to the left of the farm and ran down to the beach to watch the dance of the moonlight jellies. But Jared was too late, so sorry guys, no moonlight jelly festival for you this year. If you're mad about it, just ping @AwesomeProduction6 in the comments. After that disappointment, we went to bed and woke up in... The first thing I did on day 169 was type eel in the chat so that I wouldn't forget to catch one this season, as the eel is the last fish we need to complete the fish tank in the community center, and missing out on it this season would lock us out of completing the community center until next year. When I left my house that morning, Gunther stopped by to tell me that he has a key, which, if you think back to like day 4 of the first video, means that we can now enter the sewers. With it being a new season and all, I got a little bit trigger happy at Pierre's and ended up purchasing 650 cranberry seeds, which in hindsight was a bit overkill. It took all day, but I managed to plant down 550 of the seeds and watered most of them. I'm sure having like 10 seeds growing a day later than all the rest will not annoy me at all. Luckily for me, on day 170, all the cranberries got watered automatically, as they're all covered by sprinklers. I ended up selling the additional 100 seeds, which was a bit of a profit loss, but that doesn't matter too much, as I now have 550 cranberry seeds to harvest once they all grow. Not to mention the fact that cranberries often drop more than just one when you harvest them. I didn't really do anything until 4 today when I selected the aquatic overpopulation quest from Demetrius, in which he asked us to catch some midnight carp, and of course, I headed over to the dock to do just that. We fished until 2 AM today as we realized that the 1,000 gold penalty for passing out was worth less than the 2 extra hours we would get if we just did. On day 171, I headed over to Haley and Emily's house, even though it was a Wednesday, and when I got there, I triggered a Haley cutscene. She asked me if I was pretty strong, to which I of course responded yes, because I am the cockiest farmer in the land, and I ended up opening the lid of a jar that she couldn't seem to get unstuck. Also, quick side note, there's a heart event for Leah where she also says that the farmer is pretty strong, so I'm guessing that there's a heart event for all the bachelorettes, if not the bachelors as well. Jared began construction on a big barn, and I headed over to the sewer where I found a shadow monster, which was presumably the one that I caught in the bushes last year. Their name was Krobus, and they sold a star drop for 20,000 gold, which is a steal and a half, so you already know Jared and I had to indulge. Jared also told me to fish whilst I was there, and after quite a bit of a struggle, I managed to catch a legendary fish called the mutant carp. It must have been important as well, because when I caught it, it triggered a chat message. After that though, it was pretty much time for bed, and before I skip to the next day, I should mention that I thought I had lost days 165 through to today, because I named the file the wrong thing. See, I named my files in chronological order of when they were filmed, and this was our 9th recording session, but for some reason I named it 14, so it was quite a welcome surprise when I found the footage. Day 172, I decided to go fishing, as the eel can only be caught in the rain, and just because the additional fishing XP is just nice to have. And on one of Jared's first casts, he was the first one to catch the eel.
I got it! Dang, yes, I got it. And imagine not getting it.
No way, you got the eel, bruh.
Imagine I got it first.
That's crazy. I'm so depressed. I caught one like basically right after, but that still meant that Jared donated his eel to the community center, completing the last fishing bundle, and in turn the entirety of the fish tank, meaning that night, the Junimos removed the glimmering boulder next to the mine. Day 173, I headed over to the mountain lake, triggering a Willy cutscene, in which he gave me a pan and told me that it was a way to find rare valuables. However, spoiler alert, I will never use this even once. I did try to use it for a bit that morning, but eventually gave up after the novelty of it all wore off. I then checked out Robin's egregious prices for house expansions and decided to chop some more wood, and of course dropping by the secret woods as well. Later that night, we decided to get some work done on some of the monster eradication goals, which we would need to finish at some point. I decided to head back to the mines on day 174, hunting for the skeletons, as they seemed like a relatively easy monster goal to knock out. I managed to make it to the gold floors where I saw one of the shadow people, which reminded me of Krobus, so I checked out his shop and found basically nothing of worth. On the morning of day 175, I sorted my spoils from the night prior into my assorted chests. After that, I gathered my ancient fruits and put them in the seed makers. Then I found Haley at the fountain up near the community center and gave her a coconut. And finally, I spent the last couple of hours of daylight in the mines. Day 176 is the first cranberry harvest of the season, and of course that means that I'll be getting some insane profit when I go to bed. And side note, cranberries take a shorter initial growth than blueberries, taking only 8 days, as opposed to the blueberries which take 13. But unlike blueberries, these will produce every 4 days instead of 3. It took me a grand total of 6 hours to collect all the cranberries, and afterward I sent Jared 2,000 gold for some reason. I also triggered an Emily cutscene later in the day, in which she nursed a bird back to health after it face planted into her window. After that was done, I found Emily's sister down in Cindersap taking pictures, and gave her a coconut. That night I made a clean 95k from the cranberries. There were a couple more cranberries to collect on the morning of day 177, and after selling them, I read a note telling me about the Stardew Valley Fair. After that, I got my inventory ready and headed over to the Skull Caverns. I only made it to floor 2 before misclicking the warp totem and being sent back to the beach. On the beach, I saw Haley, where she told me that she lost her precious bracelet from her great-grandma. I told her I'd look for it, and after finding it behind Elliot's house, I returned it to her. On the way back, Jared accepted a quest to fish trash out of the rivers around the valley, and that was all we did for the rest of the night. Also, turns out that the few berries I picked today were worth almost 10,000 gold, which meant that, if I had watered them a day prior, I could be getting 100,000 gold per day every 4 days. I dropped off my half of the trash from the cleanup quest on day 178, and then headed to Marnie's to buy some animals. Before I then checked out the pets options and saw that a purple turtle costs 500,000 gold. And then Jared dropped off the rest of the trash, which we earned 500 gold for. Around noon, I headed to the secret woods for some more blackberries. Then I headed over to Lewis's house with a prize ticket, which I cashed in for a book called Friendship 101, which would help me gain hearts with villagers a little faster. And finally, to end off the day, I chopped some trees up near the shrine thing from year 1. Oh, and I also chopped some stumps in the secret woods, as I didn't have my axe on me earlier. But at least the blackberries fetched me another 2,000 gold. Day 179 started with hitting foraging 10 after chopping 1 tree, but I just continued chopping as I didn't really know what else to do. I moved on to fishing a bit before noon and headed over to my old favorite fishing spot, which I haven't fished in quite a while. That was all I did for the entire rest of the day, and I still didn't manage to level up somehow. Just kidding, I did. I just didn't get the notification for it, as you only get 1 notification for a skill level per day. Oh, I did hit level 10 fishing, I just didn't get the notification because I had already leveled up foraging. Yes! Fish worth 50% more. That night, I claimed the botanist profession for foraging, making all foraged items iridium quality, and the angler profession for fishing, making fish worth 50% more. On day 180, I sold all the fish that I couldn't sell yesterday due to lack of time. And now that the last skill I needed to max was combat, I got my sword and pickaxe ready for a trip to Skull Caverns. Jared also came with me, and I left on floor 13, since for some reason I put the warp totem right next to my food. The rest of the day was spent putting stuff away and smelting the ore from today's excursion. The Skull Caverns trip wasn't a complete failure though, as that night I was granted level 8 combat. Level 8 combat. Oh, I can make explosive ammo now. I know that's really good. I collected my iron bars first thing day 181 and added some more to cook while I harvested another batch of cranberries. And after I was done with that, I headed to Skull Caverns, and while there, Jared began construction on a deluxe barn so that we could buy a pig, which we would need for a truffle. I was overwhelmed with monsters and died on floor 1, which is extraordinarily embarrassing. And on the way home, I said hi to Haley. When I got back, I collected my finished iron and sorted out my inventory before going to bed early. I have nearly 300,000 gold on the morning of day 182, and I also got to collect quite a few ancient fruit from my farm, which I of course immediately turned into seeds. I saw Haley in town and handed her a coconut, and I then gave Emily an aquamarine before catching the first bus to the desert, where I spent all day, leaving Skull Caverns at floor 18. I got home with a little extra time to organize my inventory and promptly went to bed. Day 183 was just a ton of random chores, so let's move on to day 184. I just collected some iron bars from the Fernine before heading out to the Stardew Valley Fair. I already had the star drop, so there wasn't really a good reason for me to go there, but I decided to go for Jared's sake. I will spare you a ton of time by simply saying that Jared was absolutely terrible at getting star tokens, and by the time that he finally had enough for the star drop, I had already bought out the entire shop and had an additional 8,000 tokens. Yeah, Jared was trying his best to get 2,000 star tokens for a little over 25 real-life minutes, making this by far the longest for real-life time to record. On day 185, I collected a quartz and jade from my 2 crystallariums, one of which was made on day 183 during my day of chores. I looked a little bit at the community center items we were missing, and once it hit 10, I headed over to the desert. For some reason, I'm absurdly bad at getting far in Skull Caverns alone, and I ended up dying at floor 2 today. After I left the doctors, Jared also donated a duck feather to the community center, completing yet another bundle, which should mean that we only have 1 left. I retrieved my slingshot from the Adventurers Guild as I lost it when I died today, and I've actually been using it quite a bit now, as the explosive ammo I have loaded inside can actually permanently kill the mummies in Skull Caverns, as opposed to just knocking them out. Day 186 is another cranberry harvest, which means that I will be harvesting cranberries for the next 6 in-game hours. After that was done, I claimed my slingshot from the mail and immediately headed back out to Skull Caverns to use it. I spent quite a bit of time at Skull Caverns for the rest of the year, as combat is my last skill to max, and I would like to get level 10 in all my skills before doing too much work for 0 XP, as I'd like to work towards mastery levels as fast as possible. So getting level 10 combat as fast as I can is a requirement. I woke up on day 187 with almost 400,000 gold in my pockets, and immediately placed down another crystallarium and stocked it with another jade. By the way, I don't think I ever mentioned why I made the switch from quartz in the crystallarium to jade, and the answer is because I have more than enough quartz to make as many quality sprinklers as I would need before the pivot to the iridium quality. And jade can actually be traded at the desert trader for staircases, making it extremely useful to get down Skull Caverns floors quickly. Anyways, I donated a piece of wool from one of Jared's sheep to the community center, and that means that all we need now is a duck egg and truffle. Of course, unsurprisingly, after I did that, I headed to my favorite skull-themed cavern in an attempt to get level 10 combat before the year ends. I made it down to floor 10 before I had to leave at 1 AM for fear of passing out. I had 3 iridium bars ready to collect on the morning of day 188, and after collecting them, I headed out to wait for Pam to drive the bus at 10. Once she was ready, I headed to the desert, and on my way to Skull Caverns, Jared donated a duck egg to the community center, completing a bundle and in turn the greenhouse, meaning all we needed to finish it this year is a truffle. And with only 8 days before winter, this pig had better get a move on. I made it to level 11 and decided to head home for the day, as I didn't have a warp totem, and I wanted to make sure I could make it home before I passed out. I made it home with ample time and called it an early night at 10, where I had a dream that the Ginimos were finally repairing the rundown greenhouse on our farm. Day 189, every single one of my ancient fruits was ready, which got me more than enough of a bountiful harvest of the seed. I headed to the desert since it was a Sunday, which meant that I could trade in my jade for staircases. I put some gold ore in my furnace and then realized that if I want my ancient fruit to grow in time, I would need to plant them down soon. So I went to the bottom corner of the farm where Jared had temporarily placed the greenhouse and got to work tilling my half of the land. The greenhouse is important to us because in here anything can grow year round, even if the crop is out of season. For me though, I'll just be planting some ancient fruit, and after they take 28 days to grow initially, they will produce every week for the rest of time. Anyways, my half of the greenhouse was planted and watered before midnight. However, I decided to help out Jared with his half, and we still didn't manage to get everything down, meaning that half of his ancient fruit would be out of time with the other half. I collected a ton of iron on day 190, and replaced the iron ore with gold at the furnace. I went down to Cindersap for a second and found that the giant tree had fallen down, and in its place was a massive stump. It needed 100 hardwood to be repaired, so I gave it what it wanted and turned it into a house, and the game told me that something might move in eventually. I then gave both Haley and Emily their second gift of the week, and I thought that I had enough hearts to date Haley, but was unfortunately incorrect. After that, I headed to Clint's to open my absurd amount of Omni Geodes and headed to the museum to donate an Arnite and Hematite. Once that was done, I headed to Robin's to buy a bigger chest recipe, along with any other recipe she sold, as I knew that I would need to craft them all at some point. I used some bombs in the quarry and then watered Jared's half of the greenhouse, as he had gotten kicked earlier today for some reason. Day 191, I had on my stream overlay for some reason, which you can tune into live at twitch.tv/mangazorb. Anyways, I turned it off that morning and collected my cranberries, which were ready again. Obviously, after that was done, I headed to Skull Caverns, and while I was there, Jared donated a rabbit's foot to the bundle, which is unfortunate timing as I could have donated one that I got from a serpent literally today. And also, side note, why do serpents have a chance to drop a rabbit's feet? I only managed to make it to floor 10 before it got too late for comfort, and I warp totemed home. And of course, I got another 96,000 gold from cranberries. This time meaning that I had gotten over 1 million gold on my own. Which, by the way, I'm writing this on spring 13th of year 3, and Jared still has like 100k to go before he gets 1 mil of his own, which really makes me wonder what he does all day. Day 192, I cleaned up the straggling cranberries, and resisted the urge to steal some of Jared's cranberries before he got out of his house to see. After that, I moved the greenhouse in Jared's house, and we decided to put the greenhouse in the middle of our houses with a 2-block gap in between both of them. I think this is a pretty good layout for now, but we might revisit it in the future as the little pathing that comes with the greenhouse doesn't really blend in with the pathing around our farm. Since I was already up that way, I took the minecart in the mine to get to the bus, and headed on another Skull Caverns trip. I left the mines on floor 11 today at only 10 o'clock because I'm extremely paranoid that I won't make it home in time if I don't have a warp totem. I collected some iron bars on the morning of day 193 and then met Evelyn on my doorstep, and she gave me a garden pot and the recipe to make more of them, which was super kind of her. It turns out that garden pots can be placed inside and can grow just about any type of crop, whether it's in season or not, and it can be used like a single tile of greenhouse. However, it also can't be watered using sprinklers, so I really won't be using it a ton. I foraged for a bit today, which is a little surprising, but it's just because I want to turn my chests into big chests, so that they can hold more items. I then went down to Cindersap and took some extremely unflattering pictures with my future wife, before chopping down some trees in the forest and of course collecting the secret woods. I should also mention that most days we're still collecting the secret woods, and it's just not me doing it, as Jared still has quite a while to go on all his skills, whereas I already have foraging maxed. And when I got home, I turned 4 of my most important chests into big chests, and started organizing them accordingly to the new expansion. Over the past 28 days, Jared was growing a rare seed, which is apparently purchased from the traveling cart, and can be given to that statue in the secret woods, in exchange for a star drop. On day 194, Jared did just that, and I am now 1 star drop behind him, which is a little bit unfortunate, but I'm well ahead of him on the one for catching every fish. Like any day where I don't know what else to do, I headed to Skull Caverns today and got to floor 17 before dipping at 11. Day 195, I collected some jades from my crystallariums, and took the first bus to Skull Caverns. Floor 3 was an infested floor today, and while I used to hate them, I now see them as free combat XP, which is always welcome. Since Jared had been experiencing some crashing errors, I headed to the Spirit's Eve Festival myself this time, and the prize was much worse this year, being a prize ticket instead of a golden pumpkin. Day 197 is the last day of fall, which means that the ancient fruit and cranberries will die tomorrow. Like 8 of the ancient fruit had a good run of 3 entire seasons, and the cranberries got a good number of harvests before the end of the season. Anyways, after that I headed down to Cindersap to get some wood, this time to finally make my own seed makers, and it only took me a good 3 seasons to do so. I had a ton of ancient fruit this time, so that was really all I did today, and when I went to bed, I woke up in... Day 198 is the first day of my least favorite season. The reason I hate winter is because there's only one crop that I can harvest this season, and that crop can only be found in dig spots, making it much rarer than the others. And just to add insult to injury, our pig didn't mature in time, so we're now locked out of completing the community center by 1 single truffle. And so, with not much else to do, I headed over to Haley and Emily's house to give them gifts. I then selected the aquatic overpopulation quest again at the job board, and this time Demetrius wanted squid for some reason. I didn't do much for the vast majority of the day, but near the end of the day, I tested some pathing designs, as this winter we were gonna make the farm look so much better than it ever has before. We tried a mix of 2 paths, but eventually we decided that our best option was just a 3-wide pathway using the stone floor path. By the time 2 o'clock struck, I had the L part of the pathway transformed into the new path. Day 199 started off by expanding the pathing from the day before, as well as moving my sprinklers down a bit, as I wanted the path to be 3 wide at the top, whereas the current sprinkler locations would not allow that. I cleared some of the old fields and then headed over to Emily and Haley's house to give them their second gift of the week. After that, I finished up clearing the old sprinklers and placed some more paths where I wanted the new ones to go. It took me all day, but by the end of the day, I think I had something I was happy with. I'm still at it working on paths on day 200, and we actually made it. 200 days of Stardew Valley. But don't worry though, I'll finish the year. But yeah, I planted some powder melons that I had lying around, and then I deleted a part of the path that was originally going to go just above the water, but I ended up deleting it in favor of more tillable land. By the end of the day, I placed down some more sprinklers in their spots, as I think I had a good layout that I was happy with. On day 201, I had to wait for Pam to drive the bus, because with only one season left before the end of this video, I am determined to get the last 2 combat levels and unlock mastery. Oh, and Jared also came along with me today, which he doesn't do very often. At floor 23, I misclicked the totem again because I am terrible at the video game, but I guess Jared's worse because he died right after I left. The morning of day 202 went similarly to its predecessor, and miraculously Jared came with me again, as it must have been a good luck day. It occurred to me while I was there that Jared being with me was actually not a good thing, as he was taking a good number of the kills that would have otherwise gotten me combat XP. I ended up passing out on floor 15, and Jared died for the second day in a row. I put some iridium from yesterday into the Fern Eye on day 203, and after that I opened some geodes at Clint's and donated the findings of a lemon stone to the museum. And after looking at the rewards, I noticed another crystallarium, which was a welcome surprise to say the least. To no one's surprise, after that I headed to the Skull Cavern, and I am determined to get level 10 combat before the year's out, meaning that I am killing everything I see on every single floor, unless they kill me, which is exactly what a swarm of serpents did on floor 10 today. Before bed, I headed to the Adventurers Guild and collected the 2 iridium from this morning. I had some artifacts in my chest that needed to be donated to the museum on day 204, those being the prehistoric rib and anchor. And of course, once that was done, I headed over to the Calico Desert, and since it was a Sunday, I traded in my 37 jade for staircases before going to the mines. I made it to floor 18 today before getting killed by a serpent, and that is literally the only monster that I die to when I'm in the Skull Caverns. I was itching for Skull Caverns on day 205, but I still made time to go to the fishing festival, and of course, I won again. And this time the prize was a prize ticket. Also, Jared wasn't here for that because he crashed while I was waiting to enter, and when that happened, I automatically got sent to the event, which is a little sad since the only reason I was going was to have Jared get some fishing XP. And I don't even know if you can get XP during events. That night, there was an explosion. Day 206, I went to the quarry, since between this clip and the last, I had been reading up on how to find prismatic shards, as the obsidian edge was absolutely terrible for Skull Caverns, and I decided that I needed an upgrade. Anyways, the reason I went to the quarry for that was because the short that I saw said that there was a chance to find a rock that has a 25% chance to drop a prismatic shard. After that, I tried killing some of the regular mines monsters as a quick and easy combat XP, and then realized that they were probably going to give diminishing returns. So I caught Haley at her doctor's appointment and headed back over to Skull Caverns. We made it to floor 38 before Jared passed out today since it was a good luck day, and I left shortly after on floor 39 when I realized it was 1 AM. where I collected my jade and passed out in the middle of my chest room. Day 207, some of the powder melon were ready, and I just turned them into seeds as it wasn't even worth it to sell them. I then replanted them and skipped an Emily cutscene, as I honestly don't care about her at all, and the only reason I was watching them originally was for this video. And then I gave both she and Haley a gift, for Haley got me to 10 hearts with her, and I ran to her house to give her the mermaid's pendant I had purchased this spring for a completely different girl. Anyways, when I got to their house, I got Haley's 10 heart cutscene, in which she showed me a dark room to mature her pictures, which I think is a really cool hobby, and I really like that she has more of a storyline the more you get to know her. After that was done, I gave her the pendant, and she told me she would set up the ceremony in 3 days, which seems rather quick to me, but to each their own, I guess. Jared also got a prismatic shard from a meteor today, which was really annoying as I really wanted to get it before him, but it was whatever, I guess. Then, before bed, I made some more explosive ammo and smelted some more iron ore for the same purpose. I was ready to lock in on day 208, and I ended up bringing any bomb I had, as well as staircases and explosive ammo to the mines today. Jared made it to 24 before dying, and I left at 25. The bookseller was in town on day 209, and after years of ignoring him, I decided today was finally the day to spend some of my 500,000 gold on his extremely overpriced books. I ended up purchasing Ol' Slitherlegs, Horse the Book, and Way of the Wind Parts 1 and 2. Down 100,000 gold, I decided to spend even more of it today on 100 salads, as I was running out of food for the caverns. And of course, that's exactly where I'm headed after this refuel, making it to floor 9 by nightfall. And while in the mines today, I got my first ever prismatic shard. I just got a 0.1% chance. Oh my gosh! 0.1% chance to get a prismatic shard from a mummy, which I held up proudly in between the pillars in the desert, giving me one of the most powerful swords in the game, the Galaxy Sword. I got married on day 210 and decided not to do anything with my wife, and instead waited until 10 to drive myself to Skull Cavern. And then I realized that I'm driving myself and don't have to wait until 10. Since today was a good luck day, I spammed as many staircases as I could, and I got to floor 44 before 2 o'clock, where I was then joined by Jared. And after teleporting home on floor 78, I ended the day with 89 iridium. I collected the jade on day 211 and then dropped some of my iridium in the fern eye before organizing my chest while I waited. I then spent 100,000 gold at Robin's on a cellar, as I thought it'd be a good place to keep my chests. But I'll eventually learn that it would be really annoying to run all the way down here if I needed something for my chests. After that, obviously I headed down to my favorite mine shaft to test out my new and improved Galaxy Sword. And while I was down there, Jared found another prismatic shard, this time from a 0.5% chance from an enemy in the regular mines. And this one he donated to the museum. I made it down to floor 43 today with no staircases and no help from Jared. And then I headed home to collect my iridium bars from the fern eye. Day 212, I collected another batch of iridium bars, and deposited my third and final batch to smelt during the day. I somehow still don't even have level 9 combat, let alone level 10, so I headed back to Skull Caverns today. But I eventually left to attend the night market with Jared, as he had an Easter egg he wanted to try out. I bought this painting from some dude named Lupini, and then attended the horrendous mermaid show with Jared. And after it ended, and we performed a pattern of clicking the decorative shells, I ended up getting a pearl which would sell for 2,500 gold if I chose to sell it. When I got home, I had both jade and iridium to collect before heading to bed, and overnight I hit level 10 combat. Yeah, that's right, I lied to you for the narrative purpose of you getting surprised when I got level 10 tonight and not level 9. So, anyways, I picked Brute, giving 15% more damage. Oh, and by the way, I did not lie, I just completely missed level 9 combat. I woke up on day 213, and I don't know how to explain it, but I kinda just sensed that a new way was open. Yeah, that's right, I got Mastery, which means that I can now put my other tools in my inventory, as I don't have to force myself to go to Skull Caverns every day anymore. I went over to the Mastery Cave, and I decided that when the time came, I was gonna choose farming for the perk of the Iridium Scythe, which meant that I didn't have to individually pick crops anymore. I headed over to the Secret Woods for the first time in weeks today as well, as it seems like a good way to get some quick XP. And then I went to the night market where I purchased some submarine tickets so that I could catch new fish, as I wanted to finish the winter fish so that next year I can catch every single fish, which would earn me a star drop. We fished until 2 AM and passed out where we were fishing. I had some more powder melons ready on day 214, and after turning them to seeds and replanting them, I checked out the fishing completion to see what I was missing. I then proceeded to open a singular mystery box which gave me a mystery hat, which of course I had to sport for the rest of the day. Then I stopped by the wizard's place to give him a birthday gift, and then I spent 100,000 gold on 100 coffees. After that, I decided to go to the mountain lake to fish for the legendary fish of winter, that being the glacier fish. And plot twist, this is the wrong spot for the glacier fish. Let's see how long it takes me to notice. I planted some more powder melon seeds on day 215, and then bought a calendar from Robin's to see people's birthdays much easier. After that, I sold some excess stockpile fish and the fish from yesterday, and went to the regular mines for some reason before going to the wrong place to catch the glacier fish again. Not only were there jades to collect on day 216, but my gold axe that I completely forgot to mention in this script is ready as well. I fished in the town for a little bit, and then I headed to the beach to sell Willy my fish and purchase some bait and sonar bobbers. Of course, this can only mean one thing. I'm fishing for the glacier fish again. And this is, what, the third day in the wrong spot? I figured it out by the end of the day, but even after reeling it in several times, I didn't manage to catch it before passing out at 2. And side note, you cannot tell me that this spot does not look exactly the same as the spot in the lake. I did some housework on the morning of day 217, but after that was done, I headed over to catch the glacier fish. And after failing to catch it for a couple of hours, I ran over to Willy's shop to buy a bobber to make it easier. And it turns out Willy's is closed on Saturdays. I headed back to the spot hoping for a miracle, but I still didn't manage to catch it today. At this point, I realized the glacier fish is not being caught if I don't have a bobber. So I didn't even try on the morning of 218, instead heading straight to the pier and waiting for Willy to open up shop for the day. Once he did, I bought a cork bobber, which slightly increases the size of the fishing bar, and collected my axe next before switching the greenhouse to iridium sprinklers and turning my ancient fruit to seeds. Day 219 is dedicated solely to catching this stupid fish. And, I caught it on the first catch of the day. That's really lucky, actually. Yes! Freaking finally! I immediately put it in a chest and redeemed 3 of my prize tickets that I just had lying around, 6 megabombs, a sports cap, and a dehydrator. I then spoke to some villagers and decided to do some less strenuous fishing in the river, this time to catch a lingcod which I brought to Willie, and then I brought one of my prized iridium bars to the wizard in return for 5,000 gold, which is a worthy exchange in my book. Day 220, I claimed my steel hoe from Clint's and immediately exchanged it for a steel watering can upgrade. After that, I gave Gunther a rusty spoon and organized the museum a bit. After that, I scoured the wiki for things to give Jody, Kent, Vincent, and Sam, as I've decided that I'll be giving gifts house by house, starting with this one. Well, I suppose starting with Emily and Haley, but the second house is this one. With crows coming back in the spring, I placed down some of my rare crows on day 221 in an attempt to get the farm prepped for a bountiful harvest next year. And after that, I headed to my gifting house to give Jody, Sam, and Kent a gift. But I couldn't find Vincent for some reason, so I figured the next best thing was the wizard. So I stopped by his house to give him a void essence before heading up the secret woods. Jared wasn't feeling very creative on day 222, so he decided to name his second child John. The Feast of the Winter Star was today, and although neither of us remembered from like 2 IRL weeks ago when we initially got the letter, we thought that our Winter Star gift receivers were Evelyn for Jared and Harvey for me, due to a clue in the inventory. And lo and behold, we were right, and Harvey seemed more than happy with his gift of a triple shot espresso. And in return, I got Haley, who gave me a single jade, which I'm guessing she nicked from the crystallariums she's always standing right next to. I cleared the watered soil from the powder melons on the morning of day 223, and then I headed to the quarry and then the desert. I made it down to floor 14 in Skull Caverns, and then did some housework for the rest of the night. Day 224, I got the Clicks achievement after giving another void essence to the wizard, and then gave Jody, Vincent, Kent, and Sam a gift. And then I spoke to some of the other villagers hanging around the town. While I was mindlessly running around the farm that evening, Jared was donating a fire opal and barite to the museum. And right before bed, I got my inventory ready for gift giving when I woke up tomorrow, before finding a book called Mapping Cave Systems, which would make Marlin's retrieval service cost 50% less money. On day 225, while speaking to Haley in her spot between the crystallariums, I got the star drop for reaching 13.5 hearts with a spouse, which I completely forgot existed. When I got to their house, I gave Vincent, Jody, and Kent a gift, and then waited until 1 o'clock in the afternoon for Sam to finally leave his room for the first time all day. And after that, I donated the Dwarf Scroll Volume 2 to the museum. That night, I collected my ancient fruit and turned them all into seeds, and finally spent the last part of the night fishing for a lava eel, till I headed home for the last day of the year. And when I went to sleep, I dreamt of planting 400 ancient fruit tomorrow, completing the community center next year, and getting 100,000 views on this video. But that'll have to wait until next time, because that was my second year in Stardew Valley. Day 226 was the first day of year 3, and once again, it is so good to be back here on Mangala Farm. The very first thing I did when I got back on the farm was collect my jade from the crystallariums next to my wife. When I walked out of my house, I saw a glance of a tomb-like structure in the top left of our farm, where 4 candles were lit up, before promptly ignoring it to begin clearing my farmland for the next season worth of seeds. I did eventually go up to the corner, but there was nothing there. However, it turned out that Jared had gotten this pink bear statue thing from it. I quickly went back to tilling my expansive field for the season, and this time I am planting down a grand total of 400 ancient seeds, which is going to take me an insane amount of money. But an insane amount of money takes an insane amount of time. So that's what consumed my entire day today, passing out on the floor of my house. Day 227, all of the ancient fruit from yesterday got watered by my sprinklers. So instead of painstakingly watering the crops, I instead expanded the bottom of my farm to put a couple of spring crops. But first, I headed to town to collect my steel watering can, and while I was there, I purchased 15 cauliflower for the full shipment achievement, along with another 200 potatoes since I didn't learn my lesson last year. Around 3-ish, I had already planted as many potatoes as I could fit in the radius of my very limited sprinkler setup. So I had to go back to my house to put some ore in the furnace to prepare for some more sprinklers to water the last 40 or so seeds. I then headed down to the bottom of the farm to clear some grass, where I found a truffle, which, if you watched my last video, you would know is the only thing that we are missing to complete the community center. And so that's exactly what I did when I got one final cutscene with the Junimos before they returned to the spiritual world. When I got home that night, I gave Haley one of the cakes from the final bundles reward, before adding 8 more sprinklers to the farm, collecting the refined quartz and adding another 4. And finally, before going to sleep, I collected another batch of finished quartz and replaced it with gold. I collected and replaced said gold on the morning of day 228, then woke up Haley with another full-sized cake. Then Jared got the Clicks achievement, which reminded me to give out gifts today. So I did just that, hitting up the wizard's house and running back to town, where I accidentally triggered the completed community center cutscene. It was good to see the community center fully restored, but what was even better was to see the Stardew Hero trophy bestowed upon me by Lewis when I showed up. Then I heard Morris's voice, and Pierre started a rally to banish him from the town, and we ended up doing just that. And after he walked out, Morris and Jojamart were never heard from again. When I got back to the farm, I laid out the location of some more sprinklers, along with some paths at the bottom of the farm, which lasted well into the night. And when I finally settled down, I replaced the smelting gold and put the trophy in the corner of the kitchen. As we slept, I got a vision of the old Jojamart getting struck by lightning, which is a pretty gnarly thing to happen to a building abandoned less than 24 hours before, but I bet Morris was pretty happy that he didn't own it when it happened. Day 229, of course, started with replacing the gold in my furnaces, which is something I have done like 5 times now in this year, and I guess I just had a lot of gold ore stockpiled. I don't know. Anyways, Haley got the last cake of, honestly, probably the rest of this entire save, because why would I ever make cake? And then I went out into the rain to open an absolute ton of mail, courtesy of completing the community center, before fishing in the river, since the fact that it was raining meant that I had a chance to catch some fish that I was missing for the full fish catalog, which I plan to finish this year. Then I went to go give gifts to Jody and Kent when I got a cutscene where Kent had PTSD from the sound of popcorn from the war. And I think now is a great time to mention one of Kent's liked gifts that I found while researching what to give him for friendship. And that gift is the Dwarvish Safety Manual, which makes bombs deal 25% less damage to you. In other words, an absolutely insane liked gift to give to the war vet. Anyways, after that I headed to another fishing spot, this time to the mountain lake, where I was fishing in search of the first legendary fish in the game, the Legend. And it was actually super easy. I caught it first try, not to brag or anything. Since I was already up there, I checked out the Monster Slayer goals and decided to go hunt some Duggies for a little bit, before, going to kill dust sprites. My bad. I spent basically the rest of the day doing that before collecting my gold and going to bed. Day 230, I was finally through the rest of my gold stockpile, as I could only fill 4 furnaces today. Then I went to give Emily another gift in an attempt to max her out when I was sad to hear that I still had another heart to go. I checked out the traveling cart on my way back home and collected the secret woods while I was there. Then I chopped down some of the, now very sparse, trees in the cindersap forest. To end off the night, I smelted some iron ore in the furnaces, and also made myself some more coal in the charcoal kilns, since I was running low. That iron was for some more sprinklers, which I placed down that night. I collected the refined quartz from yesterday on day 231, before heading over to the mines, where I went to the ice floors to farm some iron, with the added bonus of coals from dust sprites, and just the kills, as I needed them anyways for the Monster Slayer goals. Around midday, I had gotten a decent amount of iron, so I headed home to smelt it. While I waited for it to cook, I headed down to the cindersap forest in search of the last couple of points of XP that I needed for my first mastery level, where I found these glitched bubbles that spawned on top of a bridge. It was honestly a nice change of pace to be fishing again, and I fished late into the night before entering the mastery cave again and getting my first mastery level. The one that I chose was the Farming Mastery, as the functionality of the Iridium Scythe to harvest tons of crops at once was something I had been looking forward to for a while. I stole Jared's horse and parked it in his stable before selling some things and going to do some more organization before bed. Day 232, the ancient fruit in the greenhouse was ready, so the first thing I did when I woke up was harvest my half. After that, I collected the last of my iron from last night and promptly turned them into 17 more sprinklers. Then I went down to my new basement expansion and tried to put the harvest from this morning into what I thought turned into wine. However, it turns out I am an absolute idiot, as the basement came with casks, which can age wine, and not kegs, which is the machine that makes it in the first place, something Jared quickly pointed out when he came down. I didn't have the materials for kegs yet, so I settled for the temporary solution of 2 preserves jars, which would make some more valuable, albeit less than wine, ancient fruit jelly. Around noon, I placed down the sprinklers from this morning, and ended up filling all but 2 slots of my current farm area, putting me in a great position for this summer. Jared and I then fiddled with the pathing around his house for a little bit, before I took a quick break to harvest the secret woods. And then, to end off the night, I organized my chests once again, and made some more charcoal. Day 233, I had some jades and a dried ancient fruit ready, so I collected them both before heading outside, where Jody was at my door, inviting me to dinner, with the odd request of me providing said dinner. Since it was Monday, I was headed to her house anyways, and then went to the mountain lake in search of the largemouth bass that she had requested. After I caught it, I headed back to the farm, where I started counting out the tiles of mine and Jared's sides of the farm, as he was convinced that he had gotten less land than me. Spoiler alert, we never changed anything, and he actually technically has more land than I do. After that, I fished in front of Jody's house while I waited for it to turn 7, and when it did, I triggered the cutscene where Jody thanked me for the fish, Kent caught some strays. Bro, Jody's so passive aggressive. She said, Kent caught a fish too, but he eats about a whole fish himself. And then I left. I ended off the night fishing next to Jared in the rain. The potatoes were finished on the morning of day 234, and I harvested them trying out the new, insanely satisfying iridium sight. I threw the day's harvest of potatoes in the shipping bin, and then counted out the number of sprinklers I had in order to determine how many more potatoes I wanted to buy. Once I had it figured out, I headed to Pierre's and ended up buying 380 more seeds, getting them all planted and watered by the end of the day. The rest of the night was spent doing some more calculations for how big our land was, and that night I made 23,000 gold from the potatoes. Day 235, I did some more calculating of the land and then collected the finished ancient fruit jelly from day 232. After that, I made myself 200 rustic plank floors, as I thought they'd be a good fit to the pathing for my tree farm. The reason I was making a tree farm is because I had way too much farmland as is, and I wanted to get started on my future keg empire, as I'm already quite late to be doing this, and I need to get started eventually. Jared thought it would be funny to move the extra house on our land and my chicken coop to the most inconvenient place ever, so I went to Robin's and demolished them both, as I have never used the coop, and the extra house is kinda useless. Once I was finished with the grid of pathing, I gathered all the oak seeds I had and placed them in the gaps. Near the end of the day, I found my way back to the old location of JoJamart and discovered a new bundle similar to those in the community center, although this one was much more demanding, requiring us to give up rare items like 5 gold quality ancient fruits and a prismatic shard. And finally, the last thing I did was collect some more wood from the trees down in Cindersap. Day 236, I went down to the river in Cindersap again for some reason, before quickly moving to the mines, where I headed to floor 100 in search of the elusive lava eel. After catching more trash than anyone could ever need, I got the lava eel on the line and immediately lost it, as this fish is actually quite difficult. I eventually gave up and headed back to the much less infuriating fish in the regular river. The traveling merchant had a rare seed on day 237, which I immediately bought, and while I was there, I cleared out the secret woods. The rare seed would take 28 days to grow, which meant that I couldn't leave it outside where the sprinklers could water it. So I moved my only garden pot next to my bed so I was less likely to forget to water it. I grabbed some gifts from my gifts chest, but I ended up taking too long, and the only person whose house was still open was the wizard. So I gave him a void essence before making some things and trying to come up with a cohesive design for the fencing we plan to put around our farmland. Day 238, I watered my brand new rare seed and gave the wizard a gift while I waited for the festival to start. Jared bought some strawberry seeds, and we both talked to all the villagers before I started the egg hunt. I ended up winning this year, getting myself the reward of a straw hat. And after the festival ended, I collected the secret woods in the dark of the night. Day 239 was the first of a new week, which meant that the weekly gifting limit had reset. And of course, I dropped by my boy Rasmodius' house to give him another void essence. Then I got, presumably, a penny cutscene, but Haley was there too, so I don't really know. Anyways, it had Vincent talking about his school books falling apart. Oh, and by the way, I realized I forgot to mention this new UI in the top left of my screen. The icons on screen right now, for example, tell me that the traveling cart is here today, and that it's a good luck day. This is from the Vanilla Plus mod called UI Info Suite. It doesn't actually influence anything gameplay-wise, just a nice thing to have. This mod also shows birthdays when they happen, tool upgrades, and, if I hadn't already maxed them, skill bars and XP gains. Anyways, I got a cutscene with Sam and Sebastian where they were practicing for their band. Then I gave Vincent a grape and Sam a cactus fruit before collecting my side of the greenhouse, and then stealing Jared's artisan goods, and organizing my chests a little. At 4, I headed to the desert to buy 80 staircases, and then promptly left, before playing some Junimo Kart, which I immediately developed a deep-stemmed hatred for. Day 240, the cauliflowers I needed for shipping 15 of every crop were grown, and so was another batch of potatoes. Of course, I started the morning harvesting them all and selling everything when I was finished. Not wanting to let my fields run empty, I ran over to Pierre's where I bought another batch of potatoes, and spent the next couple of in-game hours planting them down. After that, I headed over to the Desert Festival, where I selected the Deep Dive quest, which wanted me to get to floor 30 of the Skull Caverns for the reward of 50 calico eggs. I quickly finished the quest as I was using the staircase method, since I was going to try and do a good run as well. A good run it was, as I triggered a cutscene from Mr. Key upon reaching the 100th floor, and I ended up drinking a glass of snake milk, which tasted abhorrent, but it was worth it for the bonus of another 25 max health. When the cutscene ended, I found an elusive dinosaur floor, which was a welcome surprise as I would eventually need to kill like 60 of them for the Monster Slayer goals. When we decided to go home, we took the short bus ride away from the festivities, and that night I got 52,000 gold from the potato harvest. I grabbed some jades on day 241 and then headed to the quarry, where I cleared out the ores and after that went to the desert again. Of course, I decided to do the Skull Caverns again as it's actually quite a good strategy for getting calico eggs. I ended off the day fishing in a tiny pond where I had gotten a quest from Willy, which I did not complete before passing out at 2. I was waiting at the bus on day 242, going back to the desert for the 3rd day in a row, as this time I had my heart set on catching this fish for Willy. I actually did end up catching it this morning, and since it was my first time, I added the scorpion carp to my fishing catalog. I left relatively early today as I wanted to dedicate some time to catching the stonefish found on floor 20 of the mines. This isn't something I have to do this season specifically, but I decided I would try it out today. Later in the day, I moved to floor 60 in search of the ice pip, which I also didn't manage to catch before passing out. Armed to the teeth with trout soup and a cave jelly, I set back out to floor 60 of the mines on day 243. Where I'm dedicating the entirety of today to catching the various cave fish scattered across the floors. The ice pip was the first of these, which I quickly bested with my rod. And after that victory, I headed to floor 100, where I caught a lava eel. This was much easier than I had expected it, and I don't really know what happened. I'm assuming I just got a really easy pattern.
Okay, why was that so easy? The lava eel's like so easy to catch.
Despite how lucky I had gotten, that endeavor took pretty much all day, so I promptly went to bed. Day 244, Haley asked me if I could bring a chocolate cake to the town on a sunny day. I am watching this footage back to write the script, and I completely forgot this ever happened, so sorry Haley. After that, I headed over to the museum to donate some artifacts I had lying around my chests, those being the palm fossil and prehistoric tool. I opened some mystery boxes I had lying around while I was down there, and I got a rare book called the Book of Mysteries. I promptly read it, and it made it so I had a slightly greater chance to find mystery boxes, which was very welcome. Once I finished that, I wanted to test out the new power, so I headed back to Skull Caverns, which had been a decent way to find mystery boxes in the past. I didn't find anything good, and barely made it to bed at 1:50. I went to the beach on day 245, and after entering the room behind Willy's store, I triggered a cutscene. In it, he informed me that the boat needed 200 hardwood, some iridium bars, and some battery packs. However, once we turn in this lofty amount of resources, the reward of accessing a place called Ginger Island would be well worth it. I'll talk more on that when we get there, but long story short, Ginger Island is the beginning of the end game. I then typed in chat to remember to speak with the dwarf, and Jared immediately responded, "is hot," which is a bit concerning. I then went to the aforementioned dwarf and purchased another rare crow, along with a book called the Dwarvish Safety Manual. And then, to end off the day, I passed out on the wizard's doorstep because I thought it was open all day. Safe to say, it is not. Day 246, I harvested the greenhouse with Jared. And then another batch of potatoes was ready, so I harvested those while Jared finished gathering his half. I then stopped by the Jesdale family, which is apparently the last name of Jody and Kent. While I was down there, I dropped off 5 iridium at the ship behind Willie's house, repairing it 1/3 of the way. And then I walked around the town for a little bit, speaking to some of the villagers and giving out gifts. The potato harvest from this morning ended up making just shy of 50,000 gold. Day 247, I checked the mail and Caroline had sent me the recipe for parsnip soup. And then I dotted into town real quick to fill out a help wanted quest for Evelyn, who had requested a leek. While I was there, I also gave George a leek, as it's actually one of his loved gifts. Then I went to go purchase something from Marnie's, and when she wasn't there, I finally remembered to get the lucky purple shorts from Lewis, as I had finally had the friendship to enter her room, courtesy of completing the bulletin board. Then I went to the mayor's house to turn in the short, and accidentally triggered a cutscene with Emily where she was giving people makeovers. After that, I went to the community center where I found Lewis and gave him the shorts. And then, to end off the day, I did some fishing in town before having a cold one with Shane over at the dock. Marnie asked me for some cave carrots with which to train her goats on the morning of day 248, and once she had left, I dotted into town to purchase 425 more potato seeds from Pierre. After I got the crops, I promptly went to plant them down, fixing up my rundown fields. Before bed, I did some smelting and made some more furnaces. That night, I had a dream that a witch had come down and sent a spell down on Jared's coop. Day 249, I went to check, and sure enough, the void egg was there. Then I went down to the flower dance festival, and for the first time in 3 years, I finally had a partner to dance with. So of course, I asked Haley to dance, and she agreed. When I got home from the festivities at 10, I grabbed the jades out of my crystallariums and chopped down some trees in the cindersap forest. Day 250, I placed 2 tappers on some of my grown trees, and then immediately went down to the cindersap forest to cut down as many as possible. While I was down there, I finally claimed another mastery profession, this time opting to choose the combat profession for the amazing trinkets that can be found, namely the parrot trinket, which gives you money on monster kills. Then I went to the mines to get some ghost kills for the monster slayer goals, and Jared said this. Play the, let's go ghost busting line. By the way, the reason he said redo here was because this took multiple takes. Day 251 was Pierre's birthday, so I set aside my undying hatred for him and gave him a coffee. And then, right before she was about to drive a bus, I gave my one and only Pamela a beer. By the way, that last line was written by Jared. Then I checked out the dwarf shop and proceeded to buy absolutely nothing, instead going to see Linus, where he showed me how to make wild bait. I went to reset floor 41 of the mines on day 252, as I wanted to get a ton of iron. The reason I wanted iron was to make an absolute ton of lightning rods, so that I can catch lightning in a bottle during thunderstorms this summer, and to turn the energy into battery packs. Luckily, while I was down there, I was also getting a ton more kills towards the Monster Slayer goal for dust sprites. On the last day of spring, I decided that I needed a magical makeover, as Jared had gotten one a little bit earlier. So I went to the back of the wizard's house, paid the 500 gold, considered the possibility of changing literally anything, and then just kept everything the exact same. A great purchase, in my opinion. When I got back to the farm, I decided to head out to the desert again and went to Skull Caverns, where I died and ended up losing 18 Omni Geodes and 13 mystery boxes. Those were maybe the worst possible things for me to lose. I ended up going to the Adventurers Guild and bought back the Omni Geodes, so there goes 13 mystery boxes, I guess. To end the night, I placed some tappers on some more grown trees and went to bed. Day 254 marks the start of summer, and thus the death of any crops from the previous season. So of course, as all seasons start, I began tilling the ground where my first harvest of the season was soon to be planted. Once the bus was available, I took a trip to the desert, where I purchased a little over 400 starfruit seeds. After purchasing all the seeds, the rest of my day was dedicated entirely to planting and watering the starfruit. Just before bed, I placed down a sprinkler in hopes that it would water my rare seed for me. Day 255, sure enough, the sprinkler did not in fact water the rare seed, so I removed it that morning. However, my mood was quickly lifted upon exiting my house to the oh-so-beautiful sight of a field of ripe ancient fruit. After collecting all the crops, I headed down to the bottom corner of my farm to place some more tappers on the newly grown tree. After that, I headed down to the first level of the mines to farm some copper. When I got home, I sorted out my inventory in traditional nightly routine, and then mined up all my furnaces and moved them into my new furnace room, which was quickly put to use to smelt all my copper from today's mining trip. I grabbed a singular oak resin on the morning of day 226, and then headed down to the cindersap forest in search of additional wood. When I got back home, I gutted my basement of casks and replaced them all with a singular keg, which would be soon to provide one of the first of many ancient fruit wines. And finally, to end off the day, I headed back to the forest to clean up the last few trees. Day 227 started with grabbing 3 more oak resin from the tree farm, which I quickly turned to kegs and loaded them with ancient fruit. Then I found Alex on the beach before heading to the dock on the side of the tide pools, where I was in search of the legendary fish of the summer, the crimson fish. Jared quickly joined me at the dock to try and catch it before me, but by the end of the night, neither of us were successful, so we headed home. Day 228, I had my heart set on catching this fish, so I quickly headed out to the dock at the start of the day. When I got there, I purchased a trap bobber to hopefully make catching it a whole lot easier. It must have worked, as I actually ended up catching it around midday today. And after my victory, I bought 2 more sonar bobbers from Willie. On the topic of catching fish for my completed catalog, I headed to the river to catch another fish I was missing, that being the Dorado. Sadly, I didn't manage to catch it today and retreated sadly home to water my rare seed and go to bed, where overnight, a witch came to turn one of Jared's eggs to the void variant. I was up bright and early on day 229, immediately heading back to where I couldn't catch the Dorado yesterday. And after much more of a struggle than I had expected, I managed to catch it. After giving Vincent a grape, I got the networking achievement for reaching 5 hearts with 10 different people. Getting that achievement reminded me that friendship exists for other people too, so I gave out some coffees around town to up those numbers. After that, I headed to the saloon, and when I got there, Gus confronted Pam about her unpaid tab, and she decided to work to pay it back. Then, I played some Journey of the Prairie King, which is a terrible game, and I think it should be removed. So I switched to Junimo Kart, and by the time I made it to bed, Haley was long asleep. That night, I also got around 20,000 gold from Legend Row. I harvested my half of the greenhouse on day 230, and then turned my axe into Clint for him to upgrade to Iridium. While I was there, I also cracked open some geodes that I had been hoarding, and the only thing of note that I got was a prehistoric scapula, which I donated to the museum. The rest of the day I spent looking up any summer fish that I needed to collect to make sure that I didn't miss any. And before bed, I tapped 2 more trees and collected oak resin, which I promptly turned into kegs. I had a random urge to give a gift to the dwarf on day 231, and then I did basically nothing all day, until the afternoon, when I realized that at some point I would need to make every single craftable item. So I set to work on that since I had absolutely no idea what else I should do. And when I ran out of easy crafts, I pivoted to grabbing 1 of every item, since I would also need to ship everything. Gus gave me a mini jukebox on day 232, and I accepted it, not having the heart to tell him that I play with the music off. I'm sure Jared enjoyed it though. Once Gus had left, I started harvesting another batch of ancient fruit. The rest of the day I basically did nothing, so day 233, wait, what? This isn't day 233.
Also, the last one I closed my recording software, or I turned off my computer without stopping the recording. So I very well might have messed up that clip, because technically it says it goes on infinitely, but I don't know what that means. So
yeah, long story short, the clip is very much broken. Like, why does it show as an infinite in Media Player? Anyways, I guess we have to skip to the 15th of summer, which is kinda sad, but it is what it is. Day 238, I did some fishing on the dock in the rain while waiting for Willie. And the reason I needed his shop to open is to head to Ginger Island. In an insane stroke of luck, this is the first time I've ever been to Ginger Island. So I guess we stopped recording last time right before entering the island, which means that you barely missed anything. When I got to the island for the first time, I immediately cast my rod out into the sea, as I was only missing 4 fish left, 3 of which are found on Ginger Island. Anyways, I ended up catching a lionfish before heading to the right side of Ginger Island where I found a golden walnut. These walnuts are basically the currency of the island and the material you use for practically everything around here. Anyways, I continued along the path and ran into a kid who thought he was a bird. I ended up feeding my walnut to an actual bird, and after leaving the shack, I found a box with some tent kits. It turns out the walnut I fed to the bird unlocked the top of the island. So we quickly explored around, finding a ton of walnuts and kind of just exploring the new area. We ended up passing out in the volcano as we didn't realize that tent kits had to be used outside. Day 239, back on the mainland, I sorted away my spoils from the day before into my chests, and collected a ton of lightning rods from yesterday. Despite wanting to stay on the island yesterday, passing out was actually a good thing, as we 100% would have forgotten to collect our ancient fruit had we been away. However, since we're back home, that's how we spent our morning. Once the fields had been harvested, it was back to the island with me, where I found a Joja bird offering to collect all the remaining walnuts for us for the low price of 1.1 million gold. If we want to find all the golden walnuts, we can give it to this Joja bird, 1,190,000 gold. What do we think?
Yeah, let's do it.
Which, surprisingly, is actually a really good offer. Since I don't have the funds for now, I found one more walnut and used it to unlock the left side of the island, where my next target was to be found. Unfortunately, the day was drawing to a close, so I put a pause on catching the next fish, instead opting to get some more of the various walnuts dotted around this side of the island. And I talked to a lady named Birdie who gave me a washed up photograph of her dead husband, which is a completely normal thing to give to a stranger within 10 minutes of meeting them. I passed out next to the ocean, and after today's harvest, I made 275,000 gold. Day 240, Sam dropped an egg on the ground, and I took the blame for it, which Jody praised me for telling the truth, which I didn't. I saw Kent on my way to the desert, so I showed him the photo, and then went to the desert to buy some artifact troves and head straight back. The artifact troves gave me nothing good, so I went back to Ginger Island in yet another attempt to reach the volcano caldera. And of course, since I started so late in the day, I was, rather unsurprisingly, unable to make it. Day 241 was a green rain day, and after surviving the last 2 years of this strange weather phenomenon, I was practically a seasoned veteran of it. Unfortunately, this green rain was a lot less fruitful than most, as around 80% of our farm is already covered. So that means that there's a lot less space for weeds and moss to spawn. I left the green rain in the valley pretty early in the day so I could once again try to make it through the volcano. Luckily, today we actually managed to forge our way through the entire volcano, making it to the very end just before midnight. The reward for our efforts was a free prismatic shard which we could use to enchant our items, so of course I decided to test it out on my pickaxe, and ended up getting the Swift enchantment, which is an absolutely awesome enchantment that makes it so that I swing my pickaxe quite a bit faster. We decided to use a tent kit to wake up on the island tomorrow and went to bed. Okay, how long do you think you'll be gone?
Not too long. Ooh. Good thing we haven't done anything important.
This is terrible. I probably should have just left it running, but I didn't know how long you were gonna be. I don't know how this happened again, but somehow I lost even more footage for this season. I believe this is the first time I've lost footage in this entire series, and somehow I did it twice in a single season. Anyways, I ended up losing days 242 to 248 this time, but luckily I'm pretty sure that basically all we did was look for walnuts on Ginger Island. It has now been over 10 days, and I'm still in the volcano on day 249. Presumably this time in search of those fire thingies for the Monster Slayer goal. I used a farm totem to get home and sorted away my stuff, and then started smelting some refined quartz. I then used some garden pots to grow broccoli inside my house because I thought I was being smart to grow crops out of the season. But this just ended up being a huge hassle, and I only ever grew broccoli and nothing else. It was raining on day 250, but that didn't stop me from waiting outside of Jody's house for 2 hours to give out gifts. After giving everyone in that house, I went over to Granny Evelyn's house, where she baked me some cookies. After that, I went to the saloon to buy some more salads, since I was running low, and I bought 100 more along with 200 coffee for the speed boost and gifting. Then I went over to Ginger Island, wandered around, and went straight back home. Since it was a Friday, when I got home, I went to go buy the weekly iridium sprinkler from Krobus, and promptly went to bed.
What should we name your child?
Baby Zorb. It'll be awkward once they're an adult, but for now it'll fit perfectly.
Daddy Zorb. Oh wait, that's you.
It's the second to last day of summer on day 251, and luckily for me, the second batch of starfruit is fully grown. Unsurprisingly, I spent this morning harvesting said starfruit before grabbing a bunch of ready resin while I was down that way. After that, I must have been nostalgic of winter year 2 because I decided to go to Skull Caverns today. While I was down there, I found a prehistoric floor, and after killing all the dinosaurs, I still didn't have enough for the Monster Slayer goal. I passed out at 2 AM on floor 31, and that night I made 410,000 gold from the starfruit harvest. Day 252 is the last day of summer, and I woke up with 990,000 gold in my pockets. So close, but so far. I harvested my half of the greenhouse to make it past that final 10,000 gold, and then went over to the museum to donate a prehistoric vertebra. Then I gave Haley a coconut and smelted some more ores in pursuit of more kegs. While that smelted, I headed over to the Adventurers Guild to check in on my progress on the Monster Slayer goals, and I won't lie, it was pretty demoralizing to see how far I was. While I was up that way, I cleared out the quarry for the first time in a good while, and before bed, we made sure to make the Moonlight Jelly Festival this year, watching the jellyfish swim beneath us with my wife. And Jared, awkwardly standing behind her, a symbol of another successful summer in the valley. The first thing on my mind on day 283 was catching the final fish in my fishing collection, the angler. And after several hours of reeling in the wrong fish, I finally hooked it. And after, honestly, less struggle than I would have expected, I finally caught it, getting the Master Angler achievement for catching every single fish. This recording was actually recorded after going away for a week, so when I came back, I had seen an absolute ton of random stuff that I wanted to replicate. So I grabbed a rabbit's foot and gave it to a sketchy man in the movie theater parking lot. Which, I mean, horribly designed parking lot. What do you break through the fence every time you leave? Anyways, the guy gave me a special charm which permanently increases my luck. Then I dropped off a battery in the tunnel to the desert, which gave me a note to bring a rainbow shell to the train platform. I then remembered that crops exist, so I tilled some of my land in hopes that some of it would stay watered tomorrow, and went to bed. Day 284, the kegs had finished, so I collected my largest harvest yet of 23 ancient fruit wine, and after leaving my house, the regular ancient fruit was ready too. So I spent the rest of the morning harvesting that. Upon checking the mail, I found a letter from Willie containing a long-awaited star drop, putting me one ahead of Jared in star drops for the first time in this entire series. After that, I refilled the kegs with the new batch of ancient fruit and stowed away the remainder of the harvest, before adding 13 more kegs. Finally, for the rest of the night, I planted some cranberries as I had completely forgotten earlier, where I passed out on my field, which I didn't manage to get planted in time. Before I forgot, I immediately headed down to the farm on day 285, where I patched up the eroded farmland and watered anything that hadn't gotten watered yesterday, before planting down the rest of the cranberries from this season. Once that was done, I headed up to Robin's house, where I purchased a stack and a bit of wood, since the valley was starting to run low on trees and keg production was of the utmost importance. That night, I placed down a torch on the top of every one of my sprinklers, making my fields glow at night, which I personally think looks pretty good. And once the fields were lit up, I worked on the fences, passing out at 2 AM. It was raining on day 286, something that has not mattered in well over a year, but I figured I would mention it. Looking to get out of the rain, I decided today was going to be a Skull Caverns run. This was in pursuit of finishing the Monster Slayer goals, which, in my opinion, is by far the hardest part of perfection, aside from cooking and crafting all the recipes. That night, I went to the Adventurers Guild to check my progress and sorted away the random stuff from the caverns, before joining Haley in bed. My gold hoe was ready on day 287, so I quickly made my way over to Clint's,
but I must have developed a mild case of dementia because I then proceeded to leave without grabbing the hoe, instead heading to Skull Caverns. While I was there, I killed the final serpent needed for the Monster Slayer goal, which, conveniently enough, is easily my favorite ring in the entire game, since it makes a small explosion when you kill something. Unfortunately, this doesn't work to blow up mummies, but it's still a really nice thing to use for mining small clusters of rocks near an enemy. Once I got home, I did another mass smelting session, which is definitely not safe in the slightest, but whatever. I was already in bed, but I had a random burst of inspiration to grab the last 2 mastery levels I had forgotten about, getting foraging and mining. Today was also the day Jared spent like 700,000 gold on buying all the remaining walnuts, so that night, this cutscene played. Day 288, I collected the finished bars from yesterday and replaced them with the last little bit of ores I had remaining. Today was a good day for artisan goods for me, as I stole Jared's ancient fruit jelly and then collected my oak resin. Then I made some kegs, but since I couldn't use all the resin I had, I went back to Skull Caverns to get some iron, with the added bonus of Monster Slayer goals. On my way back to Ginger Island, Jared started splurging the newly acquired walnuts from yesterday, and I made my way to the regular mines in search of copper and duggies. I remembered my golden hoe was ready on day 289, so I headed over to Clint's to collect it, and promptly turned in my watering can. Obviously I had to go back to Skull Caverns once again, and this time, since it was a Sunday, I brought 100 jades which I traded in for staircases. This made the descent down criminally easy, and we ended up getting 25 key gems for a quest to make it to floor 100 without food, which is something I totally noticed while writing this script. Then Jared met me on my level, and this time he had staircases, and we continued down to floor 180 before passing out. Day 290, I saw George getting the mail, and Penny said that he could use some help, so she got the mail for him. Then he got mad, but I told Penny that it was the right thing to do. And after that, I went around town on a gifting spree, as it was becoming painfully obvious that at the rate I was going, friendship was gonna delay perfection by an insane amount of time if I didn't get my act together, and quick. After that, I found Clint being a hopeless romantic, so I told him some tips from an expert. Clint then tried to rizz up Emily, but chickened out, which is definitely a him problem, not a me problem. While I was there, I wandered around the saloon giving out gifts, and went home to collect and replace my ancient fruit wine. Side note, this is an insane moneymaker. I sold like 40 wine and made upwards of 80,000 gold. I had 11 iridium bars ready on day 291, and after collecting them, I headed outside to harvest my ancient fruit for yet another time. Below the ancient fruit harvest, 1/2 of my cranberries was also ready, so I harvested that as well, grabbing some oak resin while I was down there. Jared told me to buy a movie ticket today, so I did just that, and then subbed out my watering can for an iridium hoe upgrade at Clint's, where I also bought some copper ore, which was quickly used for some more kegs. Then I went to the movies, bought Haley a snack, and we watched Mysterium with Jared and Leah. I was saving the ancient fruit to be turned to wine, but I sold the cranberries and made 27,000 gold. I grabbed some more copper on day 292, and then went to harvest the other half of the cranberries that didn't grow yesterday. I then went over to the Adventurers Guild, and upon realizing that it wasn't open yet, I went to the ice floors of the mines to grind some more dust sprite kills. After checking the Adventurers Guild, I went straight back to what I was doing in the first place. So I really don't know what the point of that was. That was all I did for the rest of the day, and I passed out in the mines. Day 293, my iridium hoe was finished upgrading, which meant that the only part of my setup that wasn't completely upgraded was my watering can, which is only one stage away from max. I did some more gifting to start off the day, and then headed right back to my favorite place, floor 40 of the mines. I actually did manage to make it to bed today, skating in at 150. There was no messing about on the morning of day 294, as I just headed directly to the mines. I spent most of the day in the mines, but eventually got bored, so I decided to leave the mines early and purchase some books from Marcello. Day 295, I grabbed some oak resin down at the tree farm, and then ran around town giving out various gifts while I waited for Pierre's to open. Once it did, I gave Abigail an amethyst for her birthday, and then put some iron in the furnace before running into town, grabbing a prize ticket, and collecting the iridium hoe, which I replaced with the final upgrade of the iridium watering can, and no, I'm not upgrading the trash can. When I got home, I grabbed some more iron and added some more kegs to the basement, which is filling up quite nicely, might I add. But do you know what's not filling up nicely? My dust sprite kills. So I spent the rest of the evening in the mines hunting for them until I passed out. I had some more iron ready on day 296 and then proceeded to play hide and seek with Jared since he was starting to get really bored. Yeah, that's pretty much all we did, but at least near the end of the day I did a friendship run to the saloon. Day 297 was the first day I recorded alone, since Jared got bored and quit the series. Basically, he just thought he was really far behind since he does like literally nothing all day. But anyways, he just got bored of the series, so this is a solo playthrough now. Don't worry though, he'll be joining us again for the next Stardew series, that being Mega Modded, which we've already recorded half of the first year. But anyways, today started with harvesting the cranberries, if you couldn't already tell by the background footage. Then I walked into Marnie's ranch and proceeded to awkwardly intrude on Shane passed out on the floor after one too many drinks. And I then immediately left them to deal with their own things once Jas started crying. Once that was done, I headed back to the mine in order to get the last couple dust sprites I needed to kill. But I didn't manage to make it before passing out. At least I made almost 80,000 gold off of cranberries today. I collected and replaced my ready wine on the morning of day 298, and then collected some oak resin as well. Speaking of collecting things, I also collected Jared's ancient fruit today, which will be rebranded to Mango's ancient fruit from now on, thank you very much. And of course, I also collected my own ancient fruit as well, including both sides of the greenhouse. After making the rounds collecting the stuff around the farm, I decided to clean up the tree farm today, by adding some more tappers and clearing trees that had grown in the wrong spot. I went to the mines today, but who even cares, I didn't get the stupid Slayer goal. But I did make over 100,000 gold from the ancient fruit, so I played Journey of the Prairie King with Abigail on the morning of day 299, and then I tilled and planted a ton of wheat, as I had recently come into possession of a large sum of animals. For some reason, I thought that the animals were able to eat wheat, but it turns out that they actually eat hay, so oops. Anyways, today's a big day, because today I'm buying the first of 4 warp obelisks, this one being the Earth obelisk. Not because it seemed particularly useful, in fact it's probably the worst one, but I had the materials, so you know. However, the obelisk quickly came into play as I used it to go to the mountains and finally completed the Dust Sprite Slayer goal. And while I was up there, I went to the copper levels and got another Slayer goal. This time, it was the slime one. On day 300, I went back to the mines, this time in search of Duggies, which are notoriously rare, to the point that they have a lower kill count requirement than even Pepper Rexes. So I spent the majority of the day resetting floor 15 of the mines, since it has a close patch of dirt, and repeatedly running there hoping a Dougie would spawn. However, I eventually got bored and switched to floor 80 for the Shadow Monster goal. I went back to floor 15 near the end of the day and actually managed to finish the goal. So I promptly went back home to organize my inventory and go to bed. I was back in the desert slaying some more monsters on day 301, with the added bonus of collecting more ore, which I was quickly running out of from my surplus of keg. While I was down there, I also killed the final mummy needed for another Slayer goal, putting me at 4 goals completed in 3 days. Anyways, this was a nice one to get out of the way since I find mummies extremely annoying to kill. I gathered up 10 cactus and coconuts on the morning of day 302 and headed over to the wizard's house where I plan to buy the obelisk to the desert, with the only issue being that I don't have enough money for it. So I guess that'll be a purchase for another time. Then I went back to the farm and collected my cranberries, but only half of them for some reason, and went over to the desert to trade in my Omni Geodes for some artifact droves, which I opened alongside a bunch of mystery boxes that I had been hoarding. Surprisingly, that actually worked out really well as I got 4 new artifacts to donate. I would tell you what they are, but for some reason it isn't saying it in chat anymore. Oh, and I guess I finally remembered my crops because I collected the other half of the field when I got home. And finally, to end off the night, I gathered some more wood and cinder sap by cutting down any tree I could find. The wheat was ready on day 303, a fact that does not matter at all, as it in fact cannot be used to feed the animals. After a quick Google search, I headed over to Pierre's to buy some wheat, and then Marnie's since he doesn't sell it. While I was there, I also bought the animal catalog, which would let me buy animals from Marnie's even while she wasn't there, and then proceeded to never use it for the rest of the series. Since I didn't know what else to do for the rest of the day, I scanned for prehistoric floors by using staircases, and actually managed to find one, which somehow still didn't have enough Pepper X's for the Slayer goal. Day 304, I had a ton of ores to collect, and after collecting them, I quickly replaced them with another batch of copper. I did a couple cycles of this before collecting my ready batteries, petting the animals, and selling some random things. Then I went out to the field where I tried to expand the fencing a little bit. But honestly, I did not care enough to commit to decorating the whole thing. And after that, my ancient fruit wine was ready, this time giving me a little bit over 50. And so, with nothing much left to do, I went to bed. Day 305, I collected more finished bars, along with the biggest batch so far of oak resin, which I quickly turned into kegs and placed in my basement, putting it so close to being completely full. After I got them all down, I filled them with more ancient fruit, and collected a ton more ancient fruit from the grown fields and greenhouses. Now, look at this shot. What, are you jealous of my 3,319 ancient fruit worth 2.5 million gold that I have lying around? Because if I were you, I certainly would be. Day 306, I headed over to Ginger Island, where today I was grinding for dragon teeth, which I need 10 of for the island pylon I will eventually need for perfection. And that was pretty much all I did all day, since those teeth are insanely rare. I collected and shipped a ton of animal products in order to get some more of my shipping collection filled out on day 307. After that, I went to clear the ores out of the quarry, and then headed to the desert to grind some more Slayer goals. And after finding the biggest prehistoric floor I had ever found, I somehow still didn't finish the goal. I decided to go to floor 80 again on day 308, obviously searching for some more shadow monsters for the Slayer goal, where I spent the rest of the day not managing to finish it by the end of the day. All the cranberries were ready on day 309, so of course the vast majority of the morning was spent doing that, before heading to Skull Caverns yet again, where near the end of the day I found another prehistoric floor and finally managed to kill enough Pepper X's to finish the goal. On the last day of fall, I headed back down to floor 80 of the mines to hopefully finish one more Monster Slayer goal before season's end. Unfortunately, by the end of the night, I was unable to finish the Slayer goal. Overnight, there was a new brown cow, and I named it Odysseus for some reason. But that is the end of fall. Day 311 was Krobus's birthday, so I headed down to the sewers first thing in the morning to give him a diamond. After that, I went to Jared's old house and stole anything of worth that I could find, moving it into my chests instead. Then I put some ores in the furnaces and bought, honestly, way too much wood from Robin. And finally, before bed, I collected the ancient fruit wine and tilled a small area of my farm to plant some powder melons I had been hoarding for the last year. That night, I made 200,000 gold from the ancient fruit wine. Day 312, I finally realized that the broccoli I had been growing in my house was completely useless, and a huge waste of space. After destroying that, I headed to the greenhouse to collect some ready ancient fruit, along with all the fruit trees and some oak resin. With this batch of oak resin, I finished filling the basement with kegs, so I refilled them all with some more ancient fruit I had been stockpiling for winter. I had way too many kegs and nowhere to put them, so I figured I would put them in the quarry. And after making some progress on that, I headed to the lava floors to hunt for some more shadow monsters, where I somehow managed to die in the mines 10 minutes before the end of the day. Day 313, I completely forgot to hit the record button, but luckily Real-Time Mango filled us in. According to my sources, I got 2 more Monster Slayer goals, then worked on the cooking collection items and shipped a few things, meaning that we only have 2 more Monster Slayer goals to get 10% closer to perfection. I actually hit record on day 318, which started with collecting the ready powder melons and putting them in the seed makers. After they had all been converted to seeds, I placed them down and expanded the field a little bit. After that, I meandered around town a bit and collected the finished ancient fruit wine. Day 319, I collected the greenhouse and oak resin before putting some copper in the furnaces so I could make some more kegs. Then I refilled the basement kegs, placed the new kegs in the quarry, and filled all of those as well. Then I went to Ginger Island and headed to the Walnut room, where I awkwardly got the cutscene explaining everything despite already having key gems, as I had never personally entered the room and the only quest I had done was started by Jared. I didn't think I had the capabilities to get 4 prismatic shards in 20 days, but I picked the quest nonetheless, as there was absolutely no way I was finding 100 different items in various colors. Also, if you were wondering, I have 37% of perfection right now, but don't worry, that'll ramp up quickly. While I was on the island, I bought a banana sapling from the trader and planted it, and then went to the volcano to grind dragon teeth. I respawned on the island on day 320, so I figured I might as well grind some more dragon teeth. It took basically all day, but I cleared out the entire volcano, running through it a second time later that night, which was not lucrative at all, as nothing respawned. For the third day in a row, I went to the volcano on day 321, and decided to leave the island quite early on in the day, opting to leave behind the warmth of the island and return to the cold winter in the valley. Anyways, I did basically nothing all day, and went to bed at the ripe time of 2 in the afternoon. I went to Skull Caverns on day 322, but only for a short time, before I returned to the valley to grind some ice in the cold floors of the mines, where I proceeded to spend the entire day. Day 323 started with smelting the iron from yesterday, and then heading back to the mines to get even more iron, and once again I spent the entire day in the mines. I smelted more iron on day 324, and then crafted up 30 iridium sprinklers. I placed down the first few sprinklers in Jared's old farm plot, and then grabbed a ton of bombs to blow up all the farm infrastructure so I could rebuild it all much better. Using bombs was maybe not the best idea, as I ended up voiding a ton of the advanced sprinklers, but I was basically done with them anyways, so it wasn't a huge loss. I went to bed around 10 with plans to rebuild tomorrow. The powder melons were ready on day 325, and once I had them all harvested, I was free to blow up the plot they were in. And so, with all the fields and pathing around the farm demolished, I headed up to Robin's to move around the building. Honestly, most of the things I moved got put in a more inconvenient spot, but it was fine, as most of the placements were temporary anyway, which was proved when I came back to Robin's and waited way too long for this stupid cat that I didn't even want to move out of the way. Spoiler, it never did. However, I did make a ton of progress on planning out the new fields and paths when I got home. I took a little break near the end of the day to collect all the ancient fruit wine and promptly went to bed. I collected the oak resin on the morning of day 326 and smelted some copper and bought some more wood at Robin's, which, rather unsurprisingly, was used to expand the kegs in the quarry. I moved the path down for one more sprinkler on day 327, and then headed to Robin's to move the various buildings to be a lot more convenient and fit to my liking, before spending the rest of the day doing various chores around the farm. Day 328 started by waiting for Pam to get to her job to drive the bus. Once she got there, I went to the desert for about 4 milliseconds to purchase some artifact troves, and immediately left. Once I was back in the valley, I headed to Clint's, where I got some elvish jewelry to donate to the museum. After that, I headed back to the desert again, presumably to find some more monsters to finish off the last 2 Slayer goals. I'm pretty sure I was here for the rock crabs, as I find iridium rock crabs to be much easier to find than the regular ones, since they have like a 5% chance of spawning as opposed to 0.5%. Day 329 was the exact same thing as yesterday, where I waited at the bus stop to go to Skull Caverns and spent the rest of the day grinding for rock crabs. Day 330 was a little different, as I stepped inside the greenhouse today, and then started waiting for the bus. I decided to do something useful today while I waited, so I gave Evelyn and Georgia gifts before Pam got there. However, of course, come 10 o'clock, I was waiting at the bus stop. Yet again, no luck today, as I spent my whole day in the caverns. The last 3 days did have one good thing come out of them, however, as on day 331, I had another artifact to donate to the museum, meaning that there are now very few artifacts I have left to donate. After that, I bought some staircases and descended down the caverns to get to the iridium levels faster and therefore find more crabs. I took a screenshot to send to Jared on day 332 of my spoils from the day prior, including 7 prismatic shards, which is an absolutely baffling number, and I cannot believe I got that many in one day. After that, I headed to Ginger Island to give the prismatic shards to Key, giving me 40 more key gems, where I bought Pierre's missing stock list to work on shipping every crop. After giving it to Pierre, I bought 25 of any crop I was missing, and stole some sprinklers from the valley as I was finally planting crops on the island. I spent the rest of the day setting that up before coming home to steal some more sprinklers, as I didn't quite have enough to cover every crop. The ancient fruit wine was ready on day 333, so the morning was spent collecting all of that and refilling them with a bunch more ancient fruit, before collecting the greenhouse and heading back to Ginger Island, planted the rest of the crops. Back in the valley, I collected the oak resin and went to bed, making 400,000 gold from the wine. Day 334 was an important day, as early in the morning I bought my second obelisk, that being the Island Obelisk, costing 1 million gold, 10 dragon teeth, and other assorted goods. I had a ton of iridium from the Skull Caverns runs, so I spent the next part of the day placing down a ton more iridium sprinklers on the farm, since I had taken all the old ones to Ginger Island.
Then I expanded the pathing on the farm and added some kegs to the quarry. I planned out the locations of my last 2 obelisks in the golden clock on the morning of day 335, and then spent basically the entire rest of the day making a ton more ancient fruit seeds for the next spring. Day 336, I waited in front of the saloon for a bit before feeding my animals and then going back to the saloon to give Gus a birthday gift. Notice how the icon didn't go away? Yeah, turns out it's Clint's birthday. My bad. So of course I had to give him a gift right after. Then I moved my shipping list for the cooking recipes on screen accidentally, so yeah, there's my list, I guess. And then to end the night, I fished for some of the fish that I needed for said recipes. I fished some more while waiting for Willie's to open on day 337, and when it did, I took the boat to the island for some reason, despite having just made a new obelisk. And then I spent some more walnuts on an obelisk back to the farm. Then I fished some more, stood still on the dock for a couple hours, fished again, and did some more smelting, which I've been doing pretty much 24/7 for the last week or so, and just not mentioning it because who wants to hear about smelting thousands of ores? Day 338 is the last day of the season and year, so I headed to Skull Caverns. I'd like to say I did something more interesting for the rest of the day, but unfortunately all I did was smelting. Just so much smelting. And that was all I did all day, marking the end of this video and year 3. I am back in the valley for my final year of this series on day 339, and the day started by collecting some finished ore and heading outside to clean up the farm. Once it was cleared, it was time to till the land, which is incredibly satisfying with the iridium hoe. Once it was all tilled, I planted the ancient fruit in the land. Then it was rinse and repeat for the second plot, and finally watering them both so the ancient fruit would grow on time. Day 340, I collected some oak resin, and then the ancient fruit wine from my basement and the quarry, which, of course, I replaced with another batch after collecting them, expanding the quarry while I was there. Then I roamed around the valley for a bit, cooked some dishes for perfection, and went to bed, making 400,000 gold from the wine. Day 341, I bought some assorted seeds from Pierre that I would need for more cooking recipes in the future. Once I had them, I headed to Ginger Island to plant them in the small area that wasn't already inhabited by other crops, before collecting any of the existing crops that were ready, saving some for cooking and shipping the rest. Near the end of the day, I collected the fruit bat cave for the first time in a long while, and it's safe to say that it was stock full of assorted fruit. It was raining on day 342, but that didn't stop me from waiting in front of Pierre's for 2 hours to buy some more items for cooking. Then I headed back to the island again to harvest the red cabbage which had grown, and while I was there, I headed to the volcano where I found this room that was full of mushrooms, because you may remember me saying that on day 334, I bought the island obelisk. Yeah, I must have been tweaking when I was writing that script, because that is most certainly the desert obelisk. The green beans on the island were ready on day 343, so I collected them and deposited the rest of my inventory in the chests, and taking the other chest full of cooking materials back to the valley. Then I gave Haley a coconut and tended to my animals, which were a tiny bit neglected. Then I went back to the volcano again and passed out. I woke up on the island on day 344, which, of course, meant that I headed to the volcano. Later in the day, I headed back to the valley to select the prismatic jelly quest. And for the first time ever whilst having it selected, I actually tried to look for the slime for the rest of the day. I grabbed some lucky lunches on day 345 to continue my search for the elusive prismatic slime. I would like to say that this quest is absolutely atrocious, and the very idea of doing it again for my Mega Modded series is certifiably devastating. If you couldn't tell from my disdain for the quest, I didn't get the jelly today. I did a lot of clearing around the farm and organizing my stuff on day 346, and then I set up a bigger and better tree farm around the large pond near the bottom of the farm. So once the tapper operation gets set up, keg production will be going into high gear. On the topic of kegs, I collected all my ancient fruit wine and the pre-existing tree farm on the morning of day 347, and of course restocked them as well, taking up the better half of the day. Then I did some fishing for some cooking materials, and after going to bed, I made 500,000 gold in a single day from the wine harvest. Day 348, I did some fishing on the dock, catching some more fish for cooking, and then getting an achievement for cooking 10 dishes, which is progress. Yeah, there are 81 dishes, and I have cooked 10. Oh boy. Anyway, then I set up some crab pots in search of, you guessed it, more stuff for the cooking achievement, and then fished on the beach since I didn't know what else to do. Then there was a new cow and I named it Penelope. So, good naming on my part. Day 349, I collected the crab pots, and then expanded the amount of them by quite a bit, even spreading from the ocean to the valley. After that, I built the ocean obelisk, giving me an easy teleport to the dock, which I suppose would be an okay substitute for the island obelisk, which is conveniently also the only one I still don't have, despite being by far the most useful of the 4. I had so much loot to collect from the crab pots on day 350, and shocker, I ended up getting enough periwinkles for the raccoons. When I got home, I put away all the crab pot fish into the cooking chest, and then went to the island to collect some of the neglected crops for the full shipment achievement. And, of course, cooking recipes. After putting away any I needed to keep and selling the rest, I headed to the volcano once again in search of some more tea. The final obelisk is finally within reach, and we are getting really close to perfection. I took the warp obelisk back to the island on day 351, and then started cooking any recipes I could make immediately and hadn't already cooked. I was originally planning to do them all at once and craft every single dish in a single day, but I do not have the patience for that, and broke down to make some of them. Anyways, I got the achievement for cooking 25 recipes, which is certainly much more respectable than 10. Then I went to the egg festival for some reason, and you already know I lost to Abigail. I collected the greenhouse on day 352, and then the secret woods, as I actually need hardwood since I have a lot of recipes to craft, quite a few of which require hardwood. Then I went to the caldera and finally enchanted my other tools, as my pickaxe was starting to feel lonely. At Key's Walnut Room, I selected a quest to get to level 100 of the Skull Caverns, giving up on like floor 10, since I started it too late in the day and this was the final day of the quest. I collected the secret woods again on day 353, and then chopped a bunch of grown trees down in the Cindersap Forest. Then I went to Robin's to get some stuff for organization, and then headed down to the Desert Festival and then straight home for some reason. Day 353 was a keg day, so I collected the resin and wine, bought some more ore, smelted it, and expanded the quarry some more, and then headed back home to do some more smelting due to the sheer amount of ore that I bought. The wine got me almost 600k, and with the 3 aged legend row, I made it a little past that. Day 354, I made some new preserves jars after learning about the good amount of money you can make from Legend Row. Then I selected a quest from Key to get 4 prismatic shards, as I was now well aware that that was possible to do. With the quest fresh on my mind on day 355, I grabbed a lucky lunch and descended to floor 74 with ladders, and then started mining any iridium I could find. I also got the rock crab slayer goal while I was down there, getting me the Hero of the Valley achievement for completing every single slayer goal. So I collected my rewards with a full inventory and had to trash like half of them. But at least I got 6 prismatic shards in the mines. It didn't super matter that I had to delete the rings either, as I'm pretty happy with the 2 I have right now. Rather unsurprisingly, I turned in the prismatic shards to Key on the morning of day 356, and with the new key gems, I decided to get the key to the town, which would be crucial during my focus on friendship. Then I collected the assorted crops on the island and went to bed there. I headed back to the valley after grabbing a banana on day 357, and when I got back home I found that all of my aged legend row was ready, which would hopefully fetch a nice profit when I went to bed. After that, I headed over to the wizard's house to purchase the 4th and final obelisk, the island obelisk, which is easily the most useful one. Now, the only thing we're missing to finish off what I consider to be the big farm purchases is the infamous golden clock. Now, before you say anything, yes, I'm aware that I could get much more bang for my buck just by buying perfection waivers. However, I'm a YouTuber, so I kind of have to buy the clock. Anyway, then I went to the secret woods and crafted a few more dishes when I got home. Then I roamed around the farm collecting the animals and all that jazz, getting the completely full coop for the 2nd time. When I went to bed, the legend row made me almost 100,000 gold. I collected the greenhouse on day 358, then individually targeted a few more cooking recipes. By the way, for those who don't know, many of the recipes are locked behind friendship, so this achievement will likely take me a very long time. Then I collected the secret woods and then caught some carp that I needed for some more recipes. I did some crafting on day 359, which is surprisingly quite the material sink, who would have thought. It's kinda crazy how spending materials on items you will never use is a waste of materials. Then I spent a criminal amount of gold on some more ores at Clint's, and spent the rest of the day smelting them until nightfall, where I collected the kegs.
On day 360, I refilled all the kegs since I didn't have time to do so yesterday, adding some more kegs to the quarry in daily tradition. Then I picked up a key quest to make it to floor 100 of Skull Cavern's hard mode, and I didn't cheese this one with staircases as I was searching for radioactive ore, which would be quintessential later. After getting the profits for the day, I got the legend achievement for getting 10 million gold in total. But unfortunately, that was all-time gold, and I still only have about a tenth of the funds for the golden clock. Literally, all I did on day 361 was go to the flower dance, dance with Haley, and go to bed. I wasn't recording at the start of day 362, but luckily I caught myself quite quickly and only lost about 2 in-game hours of footage. The day primarily consisted of pickaxing the hodgepodge of crops on the island and retilling it to make room for a much more profitable batch of starfruit. Before buying the starfruit, day 363 started with giving Pierre a birthday gift, and then taking the bus to the desert for once as opposed to the obelisk. Then I headed to the island again and fixed up any soil that had gotten untilled overnight, which was much easier with the help of the rain. And of course, while I was there, I planted the 600 starfruit seeds I had purchased from Sandy. Then I did some more cooking, but despite having almost all of the materials, I was still missing a ton of recipes, so I couldn't really cook much. On day 364, I got a Pierre cutscene, yada yada yada, and then waited in front of the saloon only to buy nothing. Instead, buying a furniture catalog from Robin to work on decorating, like I did for the bus stop when I got home. Spoiler, this is very much a fad, and I basically never do it again. But anyway, I put all the legendary fish in a big fish tank in the upper room. Day 365 is the last day of spring, and it started by collecting the greenhouse. Then I cleared some grass on the lower half of the farm, and then collected the secret woods. Then I checked what the raccoons wanted, and got to work preparing some stuff for them. And then I finally placed down some scarecrows to protect my crops. Finally, I placed down some tappers on the fully grown trees in the new resin farm before going to bed. I woke up in summer on day 367, and after a whole season of growth, I finally got to harvest the ancient fruit for the first time this year. Then I filled in the gaps in the farm from crows eating the ancient fruit because it was annoying me. After that, I collected another batch of ancient fruit wine, making almost 750,000 gold. There was some ready ancient fruit on day 368, and after collecting it, I expanded the kegs in the quarry for a little bit, and then refilled them with more ancient fruit. Then I mined some copper for some more kegs in the future, and that was pretty much all I did for the entire day. On day 369, both the dried spiceberries and spiceberry jelly were ready, so I gave it to the raccoon, who expanded his shop. And of course, I bought the new book called The Raccoon's Journal. When I got home, I did some cooking for a bit, and then I decided to mine for some copper for some reason, before heading home and going to bed. The morning was filled with smelting my spoils of copper from the day prior on day 370. And then giving Jas a gift for her birthday. And side note, why are literally all of Jas's gifts hard to get? Since I didn't really know what to do, I went to the Skull Caverns for a bit, and then headed to the valley to collect the secret woods and have an early night. Day 371, I grabbed one of the strange dolls from a secret spot near the waterfall, and then got another one from the desert before clearing the quarry at Ginger Island in search of some other artifacts I was missing. While I was there, I also saved a guy who was stuck behind a boulder named Professor Snail, and I really don't need this dude at all since I already paid for all the walnuts. After that, I headed to the river in the Cindersap Forest to do some fishing. Day 372, I turned in the dolls to the museum, getting my first ever rock candy as a reward. And despite this being a really useful item, I never really used it. Then I cleared out the quarry and wasted some time talking with Professor Snail. Day 373 started with more of the same, until I selected Key's Hungry Challenge and spammed staircases in the caverns to get to floor 100 easily. Of course, I wasn't going to waste the day being down that low since I could get so much free iridium on these lower floors. But actually, never mind, I am. Instead, doing the Easter egg with Lewis's basement. I collected some batteries on day 374, and then collected the fields of ancient fruit along with some oak resin from the new tree farm. Then I gave Gus a birthday gift of a diamond and bought way too much wood from Robin. When I got home, the wine was ready, so I collected all of that and then smelted some ores,
making a little over 800k that night. I grabbed the old oak resin on day 375 and then refilled all the kegs since I didn't have time yesterday. Anyway, then I wasted time for the rest of the day. Day 376, I gave Mario a birthday gift and went to the mines to once again search for the prismatic jelly. Needless to say, I did not find it. Day 377 was the luau, and I brought an iridium quality truffle, which got me the achievement An Unforgettable Soup, awarded for getting the max amount of friendship from the luau. Day 378 was spent in the mines looking for the prismatic slime some more. And then I stopped recording, forgetting to hit record for the next 4 days. I would guess that the majority of the time was spent looking for the slime, and based on the time we are in the series right now, I probably found it in this cycle. So if I don't say anything about the prismatic slime quest for the rest of the series, assume that I found it during these days. Anyway, day 382, I collected some oak resin and started kegging the starfruit from said harvest, expanding the quarry almost to full while I was there. With the fields on Ginger Island now empty after the harvest, I then bought some more seeds from Sandy and planted more starfruit on the island. I actually had an artifact to donate on day 383, putting me so incredibly close to completing the museum. Then I built a shed where I would put more kegs once the quarry was completely full. And while I was there, purchased an entire forest worth of wood. After that, I made the biggest purchase of the series, that being a return scepter. And guess what? This doesn't even count towards perfection. So why in the world did I buy it? I headed to Ginger Island to clear out the quarry, where I met Fizz, who would sell me perfection waivers worth 1% of perfection. Unfortunately, I had to turn him down despite his services costing half the price of the golden clock for the same amount of perfection. I finally did the start of the quest to put a rainbow shell at the train station on day 384. And after that, I spent the better part of the day cutting down trees and watching cutscenes. My favorite of the day being Sam's band concert. I ratted out Demetrius to Maru on the morning of day 385, and after that I bought a second shed from Robbins, and then headed to the bottom of my farm to clear a small area. Then I headed to the quarry with no luck on the artifact that I'm missing, and smelted some iridium until the end of the day. Smelting continued on day 386, along with collecting some batteries and getting back to smelting. Day 387 started with giving Willy a birthday gold bar, and then grabbing some items for ongoing quests I had been meaning to do for literal years now. After that, I collected a maple syrup and brought it to the secret woods where I got a cutscene with a bear. And while I was there, I collected the woods as well. And finally, I collected the quarry before bed. Since I am actually dumb, I lost more footage today, this time being days 388 to 390. Putting us at day 391, I cooked some more dishes in the morning, and then cleared out the bone area on Ginger Island before heading to Willy's, where I got a cutscene where his shop was full of crabs that Gus would take for his saloon. Day 392, I gave Leo a mango and watched a cutscene where he told me he wanted to move to the valley. And then I ended the day early. See, the reason I ended not just today, but the last couple of days early, is because I'm pretty much done with literally everything in Stardew Valley, other than a couple of things I either neglected or just take a lot of time, like the golden clock. And so I've decided to change things up a little bit. For the last part of this series, the day counter is going to be replaced by a perfection track. Every time I do something towards perfection, it will go up. And so, starting at 62.3%, this is the home stretch of my first ever series I'm actually going to finish. And yes, I know 62% is not really that much, but I'm really close, okay? I'm only missing like 1 star drop and some gold for the clock. And so, on that note, welcome to the... Now that we're on to the home stretch of this series, the first day back began with writing down my goals, such as cooking recipes, crafting recipes, and, of course, the golden clock. One of the first things I decided to do was buy some ore and wood to make kegs, and started work on the 3rd keg shed. After that was built, I set to work getting some more crafting recipes made, smelting the ores all the while. I even decided to move some chests to make better use of the workbench, allowing me to craft in a 3x3 area of the chests. I actually got a lot more recipes done than I would have thought, and spent the rest of the day smelting my surplus of iron and copper. A lot of my time will be spent clearing out the quarry on Ginger Island, in search for the last artifact I'm missing for that star drop.
I will probably not show much of the grinding, but just know that I had to do this pretty much every day. Of course, despite trying to speedrun the last bit of perfection, I had time to make it to the Dance of the Moonlight Jellies on the 28th. On the first day of fall, all the ancient fruit were ready, so I harvested those along with the Ginger Island farm full of starfruit, which I also replanted before collecting the wine that night. And yes, it has spread into the first shed, getting me 1.2 million gold per harvest. Since I had some starfruit lying around, I refilled the kegs with that after expanding the shed. On Penny's birthday, I gave her an emerald and also bought some beets on the same day, since I was missing them for the cooking recipe. I had to make a mystic tree from the foraging mastery for some reason, and of course, that means filling out the entire outline of my Ginger Island farm with mystic tree. After that, I waited in front of Elliot's house for half the day since he's a social outcast, and then I gave him a duck feather. I am about to make so much money since the starfruit wine is finally ready. And if you didn't know, starfruit is the single highest selling crop in the game, aside from sweet gemberries, which can't be kegged. Which means that after collecting all the kegs, I can make nearly 2 million gold off of this wine. Unfortunately, I am out of starfruit, so the kegs had to be filled with regular old ancient fruit again. However, with another half of a shed worth of kegs, and the starfruit field getting another harvest, I am certainly not low on money. The beets were also ready around this time, so I put them in Lewis's fridge as instructed, which unlocked gambling, a favorite activity of mine in real life, which translated perfectly in-game. The reason I need to gamble is because I need to get this last rare crow to make the final version of the scarecrow for the full crafting log. And after winning big, just kidding, I had to buy basically all the tokens I needed since I was getting so unlucky, I managed to get the scarecrow. Another ancient fruit harvest came and went, and despite only having 3 million in the bank, I'm actually extremely close to getting the 10 million gold I need. Upon giving Marnie her birthday gift, I got the popular achievement for having 5 hearts with 20 people. After that, there was another wine harvest, which are getting more and more time consuming. And after I collected the ancient fruit wine, I piled starfruit into the kegs for what is hopefully the final time, due to me having 4.5 mil after this wine sale. Since I timed it poorly, the day after the wine harvest is the harvest of the fields. After I was done, I finally removed the old wood farm from absolutely ages ago. The final starfruit wine harvest was today, and I actually did end up restocking the kegs with some ancient fruit wine, and finding a hazelnut on the way to the quarry, which I so dramatically put in my to-do list. After selling it all, I made over 2 million gold in a single day for the first time. When I woke up, I headed to the rainy island to collect a batch of starfruit along with some mystic syrup. Obviously, collecting the Ginger Island quarry while I was there to find nothing of worth. However, the day after that was insanely important, as I managed to scrounge enough gold together after selling all the unprocessed ancient fruit and starfruit to get 10 million gold. And finally purchased the clock on the first day of winter. I used some artifact troves at Clint's after that, and got an ancient seed, which was actually super useful since I would need to craft one into a plantable seed for the crafting log. I gave Linus a rabbit's foot for his birthday, getting me the Beloved Farmer achievement for getting 10 hearts with 8 people, and gave Haley a gift while I was awake. Oh, and by the way, I've never mentioned this so far, but basically every day is like 4 seconds long as I spam sleep through the entire year to give out gifts to the various people I neglected for this entire series. Like Caroline, who was also a proud taker of a rabbit's foot, along with Sebastian, who got a frozen tear. After that, the Squid Fest started, and it was a nice breath of fresh air to join an event for once. The only reason I participated in this one because I still needed squid for a couple of recipes, and I had failed to get them throughout the past couple of years. 10 squid later, I got the Art o' Crabbing book, and after reading it, the well-read achievement for getting every book power. Then I gave Hardy a coffee. Then I dropped some squids in the old legend pond in search of some squid ink, giving Evelyn a birthday gift as well. Then giving Clint an iridium bar, Lewis a rabbit's foot, Vincent a grape, Shane a pizza, Pierre some calamari, looping back to a pink cake for Jas, and then Gus, Alex, Demetrius, finally getting the last artifact I needed for the museum on his day. Having spent the last 3/4 of a year looking for it every single day, it's safe to say I immediately donated that to the museum, getting the achievement a completed collection for finishing it, along with a well-deserved star drop. Then the dwarf got a gift, Willie, Leo, and pause. I know that none of you want me to spend the rest of this video listing random names whenever I give them gifts. So for the rest of this video, I'm not going to list any gifting, instead only talking about things if it's actually interesting. So let's skip a ton of time and go to cooking some more recipes on the 8th. By the way, after years of having not checked the mail, when I finally did, it's safe to say there was a lot of random stuff that had been sent to me. I went back to shipping some things on the 25th of spring, finally actually on the home stretch. Crafting some items as well, getting the full shipment achievement on the same day, since I had been saving up stuff for the last few perfection goals for the entirety of this series. A couple days later, Leo moved into the valley as well, setting up residence in a tree near Linus's house. I'm not going to make you watch all the boring crafting since I'm so insanely close to the end of the series, so here's me attending the flower dance for a couple more recipes, grinding dust sprites for the cave patrol quest, and finally crafting the final item, that being a solar panel to get the last achievement I needed for perfection, Craft Master. I don't remember when I finished the cooking goal, but I'm not rewatching 5 hours of footage of me sleeping for years at a time to find the clip. And so after heading to the summit, it was blocked by a rock. But I figured if I went to sleep, it would disappear. And sure enough, I woke up in... The next morning, Grandpa was proud of me. So I ran up to the summit where I met Haley looking over the valley. She told me that she was thinking about our last 10 years together, and how she'd always wanted to share a kiss with her true love at the top of the summit. And of course, I made that dream come true, baby. With Krobus being possibly murdered by a crow behind us. But just don't think about it too hard. And so, that's the end of my first playthrough of Stardew Valley. The final playthrough taking just shy of 100 hours and almost 6 entire months of posting videos on it. It's safe to say I played 100% of Stardew Valley for the first time. Wait, but what about the JoJo achievement?